things have been getting really awkward with Netflix over the past few days, and this is your warning now. What you're about to see might make you want to throw up. So the other day, Netflix released a trailer for a new movie called Cuties, or in French, Mignon, which I probably botched that, which translates to cute. Cuties, which is what we will call it for the remainder of this video, is a French film set to release on Netflix on September 9th. But let's take a look at the description of this movie. 11-year-old Amy starts to rebel against her conservative family traditions when she becomes fascinated with a free-spirited dance crew. Wait, they changed it. They changed it? Wait, no. They changed it! Oh my god, that's not what it said. I just pulled up like an example of what it said so I can read it, but that's not what it said before. Hold on, wait a minute. Netflix did apologize, so I'm not surprised, but wait a minute. Okay, this is what it said originally. Amy, 11, becomes fascinated with a twerking dance crew. Hoping to join them, she starts to explore her femininity, defying her family's traditions. That's what it said before. That was the original description. They kind of reworded it a little bit there, didn't they? I don't know why I'm surprised that they changed the wording in the description after making their apology, which I will get into in a moment. I don't think it matters at this point if you change the description, because it's physically impossible to go back, refilm, and re-edit an entire movie and have it ready by September 9th. But let's go back to the original description for a moment. Let's dissect that for a second. Amy, 11, becomes fascinated with a twerking dance crew. There was a team of people that thought it was okay during a very critical point in the Me Too movement, where hundreds of people have been coming out, sharing their stories of what happened to them as children. And many of those people being in the Hollywood scene. A team of producers, filmmakers, editors, and a bunch of adults sat down and thought, you know what would be a great movie idea? A dance movie that hypersexualizes 11-year-olds. I've been debating on whether or not I should show the picture that they used to advertise their movie, but now I think it's important to do so because of their apology, which we will again get into in a moment. This is the picture they used to advertise their new movie. Who is in your PR team? Who approved this? Who read this description and looked at that photo and said, yep, that's appropriate? Who made this happen? I just want to know. Give me some names, because we need to have a discussion. A whole team of people that worked together to create this movie thought that this would be an okay idea. And you know what? I'm not really surprised, to be honest. Allegedly, Angelo, who is somebody that I follow on Twitter, and you should too, because they make a lot of really good points and put things into a perspective that really makes you think about things you already may have an opinion on, made a really good thread talking about how Hollywood has been sexualizing teenagers and young people in movies for a very long time, and that something like this shouldn't be shocking because of so many other movies that have been painted in the same way. We have movies and shows like 13, Teen Wolf, even Dance Moms. This isn't something that is new. This is definitely something that's been happening for years. It's just that this movie is so blatant about it. They're not even trying to hide what they are doing. They're not even trying to pretend that they're not sexualizing children. They're just right up in your face. This is an 11-year-old and she is in a twerking competition with her friends. An 11-year-old. And another thing that blows my mind is the fact that this movie is focused on a bunch of 11-year-olds, but the movie itself is rated TVMA. Now, I know that there are plenty of movies out there that are maybe rated R or TVMA or even PG-13 that have children in it, but usually in many of those movies, many of them, not all of them, the children aren't the focus of that movie, and even if they are, it's not in such a blatantly obvious sexual way that makes everybody watching the trailer and seeing the announcement of this uncomfortable. The second sentence in this description makes me feel just as uncomfortable as reading the first, which is, she wants to explore her femininity. Now, I can understand wanting to get in touch with your feminine side. That can be a totally innocent thing that anybody at any age can do, but with the context that we already have established with this movie, I think that it's extremely inappropriate to word something like that. And to me, it just feels very uncomfortable reading that about an 11-year-old who wants to join a twerking dance crew. And exactly 1 hour ago, Netflix finally apologized. Not for the movie itself, not for the description, but for the artwork of the photo shared around. You know, this one, this really uncomfortable photo to look at. We're deeply sorry for the inappropriate artwork that we used for Cuties. It was not okay, nor was it representative of this French film which won an award at Sundance. We now updated the pictures and description. I find it interesting how Netflix claims that this imagery isn't representative of the movie, yet this is how Sundance, the company Cuties has won an award from, describes the film. Cuties is a 2020 French teen coming-of-age comedy drama film written and directed by Maimouna Doucouré, I hope I came close to saying her name right, on her feature film directorial debut. The film is based on a traditional Senegalese Muslim girl who is caught and torn between two contrasting fortunes, traditional family values and internet culture, while also speaks about hypersexualization of pre-adolescent girls. Now, I've seen a clip where the director explains why she chose to create this movie. From how she described her movie, it sounds like this story is based off of her real-life experiences. It seems like she maybe had good intentions to show what it's like being a really young girl thrown into a hypersexualized environment. However, in my opinion, by creating this movie, isn't she just doing the same thing? Like, couldn't you tell the story without visually hypersexualizing children that are acting in this movie? You're essentially expanding the environment that you're trying to expose. Like I said in the beginning of this video, changing the description and even changing the picture that you use to advertise the movie isn't going to change the movie itself. There is a trailer out, and even the trailer itself makes everything seem uncomfortable. It is just as uncomfortable as the photo and as the original description. There are points in the trailer which make me go like, that's a little inappropriate for somebody who is 11 years old. That is something that an 11-year-old should not be associated with in any context. So the fact that Netflix said that this picture and description was not representative of the French film that will be releasing in September, to me sounds like a lie. I think that even just suggesting the idea of this is what this movie is about, during a time like this, where so many people are coming out with their stories of being sexually assaulted as children, so many people are coming out in the Me Too movement, actors and actresses are coming out talking about things that have happened to them years ago in Hollywood. I think that this is an extremely insensitive and disgusting move. It just goes to show how out of touch with reality Hollywood really is and people in the celebrity scene really are. The word rebel is very emphasized in the description and in the trailer of this movie. So if that is emphasized in the movie itself, it's teaching children that should obviously not be watching this because it's TVMA, but it has children in it, so chances are many of them will watch it.
It basically makes me afraid that a kid might watch this and think that doing hypersexualized things like joining a twerking dance crew is okay despite whatever age they are,
and it might influence them to rebel against their parents who are trying to keep them out of harm's way, and not only keep them from doing age-inappropriate things, but keep them from being involved with people who might take advantage of them, and by rebelling against them, people who are trying to keep them safe, it puts them in harm's way. I don't know, I've been really enjoying a lot of shows on Netflix, so it's really disappointing to see them not only promote something like this, but entirely miss the mark when apologizing for it. A lot of people were upset about the imagery used to advertise and the description, but the trailer itself is also very telling of what this movie is about, and by just apologizing for the imagery and the description, it's not going to change the movie. People are still concerned about what this movie is going to be, and rightfully so. It seems extremely age inappropriate. It's disgusting to even think about somebody so young in a position like this. People are genuinely concerned for the actors that are in this movie and what they might be getting put through, and people are just genuinely concerned about Hollywood's way of portraying situations like this. It's so insensitive right now, it's tone deaf to a lot of things going on in the world, and it is just so extremely inappropriate. This is really repulsive, disgusting, and even dangerous. To think that it was appropriate to even just post that imagery, like, again, who is your PR team? Who approved this? You need to fire them. And you need to not be so blind to what is going on in the world, because this is not okay.
I wish I didn't have to say this, but Hollywood is coming to the defense of the Cuties film that Netflix is going to be releasing on September 9th. It's not really that much of a surprise to me, though. Of course they would defend this type of movie, because Cuties represents what Hollywood wants society to be. Cuties represents the destruction of conservative values and American values, and it represents continuing to push for progressive ideologies, which eventually the progressive ideologies are going to lead to a lot more things like PD and all of that type of stuff within our society and within our culture. And that is what Hollywood wants. They want to see the destruction of things like the nuclear family. They want to continue to push for things like Marxism and all this type of stuff. So Tessa Thompson is obviously an actress who's been in movies like Thor Ragnarok and Men in Black and stuff. She decided that she would take the stance of defending Cuties. And she is disgusting for this. This is absolutely disgusting that you feel the need to defend a film about about little girls, you know, twerking. Yeah. So Thor Ragnarok and Men in Black International actress Tessa Thompson has taken to Twitter to defend Netflix's upcoming release Cuties after the film's marketing sparked widespread backlash. Rightfully so. Originally titled Mignonnes, I don't know how to pronounce that. The French film is said to follow a young Senegalese Muslim girl who joins a youth twerking crew in Paris and finds herself torn between her traditional religious culture and the hyper, spicy culture of the West. So Cuties premiered at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival, where it earned director, however you pronounce that name, the event's directing award, and was soon after optioned for international distribution by Netflix. Horrifying stuff. Netflix recently ignited a firestorm of anger around Cuties after the streaming service released promotional material for the film, including a poster that featured that featured this right here. Like, you cannot look at this picture and be like, and know exactly what Netflix is trying to do with this picture. It looks like something that you would see on, on one of those like stripper movies and stuff. Seriously, that is what this looks like. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So anyway, among the Cuties defenders was Thompson, who praised the race and gender of the film's director and argued that the film was being misrepresented by the public, or misinterpreted by the public. In a tweet, Thompson stated, "Cuties is a beautiful film. It gutted me at Sundance Fest. It introduces a fresh voice at the helm. She's a French Senegalese, I don't know how to pronounce that, black woman mining her experiences. The film comments on the hyper spiciness of pre-adolescent girls. Disappointed to see the current discourse." Of course you would, because, you push for progressivism, and progressivism is all about continuing to allow things like PD and all that type of horrible, nasty, disgusting stuff to continue to infiltrate our culture. So of course you'd be disappointed in the current discourse, because most people are still decent human beings that can read what this film is all about. We saw the plot line for this movie and can think for ourselves and be like, wow, this actually sounds like a really horrible movie. Why on earth would Netflix promote this movie? This isn't the first movie that they have promoted as well that has been basically a wet dream for PDs as well. Thompson's tweet soon sparked its own discourse, as some users defended the actress's view on the film while others flamed her for it. One user, Stark Sazula, simply asked the actress, "Tessa, I love you, but what?" Exactly. Another user, Xavier James, found the marketing so appalling that he refused to see the film, saying, "I'm not even going to look at that film based solely on the advertisement. This is disgusting. There might be a great story, but the mere fact that they dress and pose those young actresses like that is indefensible." 100%. Aunt John CN said, Tessa, this is the worst take I've ever seen. What the F? The movie comments on the spiciness of minors while also spice. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, nobody is happy about this. Everyone has kind of gone after Tessa Thompson for this, rightfully so. Thankfully, the trailer has been absolutely destroyed. So it has 677 downvotes at this time. That is one of the biggest like to dislike ratios I have ever seen on YouTube, and that is a good, wonderful thing. I love to see that. Sadly, there are 21,000 disgusting human beings that liked this trailer, but thankfully the majority of people are still decent human beings that could see this trailer, watch this trailer, and be like, yeah, that definitely raises some red flags there. I am not very comfortable with what Netflix is promoting with this film. And look at this as well. Over on Rotten Tomatoes, Cuties has been just completely praised by the critics as an 82% on Tomato Meter, which is disgusting. Shows you I guess the motivations of the critics and stuff, and what they actually believe in stuff. Meanwhile, the audience has given it a 5% score. So, and once again, just like most movies on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm with the audience more than the critics. The critics, like the fact that there are that many critics that looked at this film, a film that is a twerking film about little girls, is just horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. So, with that being said, let me know in the comments below what you think about the fact that Tessa Thompson decided to defend this film. And not just her, there are more people in Hollywood that are starting to speak out in defense of this film as well, which makes sense. I mean, because, you know, this film fits in perfectly with the progressive narrative of these people. So, it makes sense that they would want to defend this film. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Subscribe if you're new around here. I'd greatly appreciate that as well. And I will talk to you all very soon in another video. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and thank you so very much for tuning in. Today we are going to be talking about the scandal surrounding the new film Cuties, which is due to be released onto Netflix in September. So as we all pretty much know by now, there's a lot of filler on Netflix. And sure, there are popular shows and movies, things that everyone has heard of, blockbusters, but there are also things like foreign and independent films on the platform. Things that aren't necessarily there because there's this huge audience demand for them, but rather, frankly, in my opinion, because Netflix can cheaply secure the distribution rights to them and use them to kind of fill out their catalog. And you know what? No hate toward independent or foreign films. There's a lot of great ones out there, and I don't want any angry cinephiles yelling at me in the comments, but it's just a fact of the matter that honestly, no, most people don't like watching movies with things like subtitles or a dub track. That's just how it is. And you know what? For the most part, especially foreign films, they just kind of exist on Netflix without much attention, either negative or positive. But the same cannot be said for the film Cuties, or Mignonne in its original Francais, a film that debuted at this year's Sundance Film Festival. So as soon as Netflix started promoting the release of the movie on its platform, it got negative attention, and you'll soon see why if you're not already familiar with this story. And a great example of this is this post by the user Coco, who very indignantly, and I think rightfully, asked Netflix, WTF is this? And as you can see here, the promotional poster for the film features several very scantily clad young girls who I think are about 11 in the movie, not only showing a lot of skin, but also in very suggestive poses. And to make matters worse, the description of the film reads that Amy, 11, becomes fascinated with a twerking dance crew. Hoping to join them, she starts to explore her femininity, defying her family's traditions. Call me old-fashioned, call me a prude, call me a religious fundamentalist, call me whatever you want. But no, I do not think that crop tops and booty shorts are appropriate attire for 11-year-olds, nor do I think that 11-year-olds should be participating in twerking dance competitions. I hate that I even need to say this in 2020. But there you go. And actually, to my pleasant surprise, there were a lot of other people, both on the left and right side of the political spectrum, who were also very disturbed by what they saw in regard to this film. So much so that eventually the outrage against this film and the way that it was being promoted by Netflix caused the company to release this statement. As the New York Times reports, a spokeswoman for Netflix said, "We're deeply sorry for the inappropriate artwork that we used for Cuties. It was not okay, nor was it representative of this French film, which won an award at Sundance. We've now updated the picture and description." And as you can see, the new promotional images for the movie now feature the characters in much more age-appropriate attire, and the movie's description on Netflix now reads that, quote, 11-year-old Amy starts to rebel against her conservative family's traditions when she becomes fascinated with a free-spirited dance crew. And if you thought that this whole controversy would end there, you'd be mistaken, because for some people, myself definitely included, the problem with this whole fiasco is not just the way that Netflix was promoting the film, it's actually with the content of the film itself. As the New York Times article explains, some are still calling for the film, scheduled to land on Netflix on September 9th, to be deleted from the streaming service. One online petition, which had over 170,000 signatures on Friday, urged Netflix not to release it. This problem isn't the artwork, it's the fact that it's about twerking 11-year-olds for adult viewing pleasure, read an update to the petition posted on Thursday. Take it down, we have the screenshots, it added. And even though in their statement Netflix said that the original inappropriate promotional poster for the film did not represent the film well, it seems that in the trailer of the film, which was released by Netflix themselves, the actual content of the film is just as scandalous and just as inappropriate as what was originally being advertised.
Mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Il se passe quoi là? Vous dites quoi la gare?
On va danser au concours.
T'étais où là?
T'as foutu quoi?
J'étais en retard.
En retard, je suis désolée. Me dis pas.
Non, tu l'as volé?
Oh la déglingue, j'y crois pas.
À quoi tu joues là, ami? Qui es-tu, ami?
Laisse couler l'eau, ma chérie. Les péchés s'effacent avec.
That trailer has over 1 million downvotes on YouTube at the time that I'm filming this, and really, I can see why. It features 11-year-old girls dressed inappropriately, dancing inappropriately, and just in general doing inappropriate things. And so now there's this whole conversation going around as to whether the actual content of this film is or is not pro-sexualizing children. And I know if you're anything like me, you're likely thinking, well, that seems like a pretty open and shut case. I mean, how can you be anti-sexualizing children while simultaneously in your film featuring twerking children? That just doesn't really make sense. But in fairness to the director, she swears that the message of the film is actually against the exploitation of children. To quote the New York Times, Ducoré, the film's director, said in June during an interview at the Sundance Film Festival that the idea for Cuties partly came to her after she attended an event in Paris where she watched a group of 11-year-olds performing a highly sexualized dance. "I was so shocked," she said. "For me, it was just, oh my god, what am I seeing?" Many of the children's parents who were also watching the show wore traditional religious dress, she added, and the culture shock fascinated her. While researching the film, Ducoré became concerned about how social media pressures children to dress provocatively, she said. So according to this director, that is, in her own words, she claims to share this concern for the sexualization of children that so many other people online had when they saw the promotional content for Cuties. So obviously this film has kicked up a whole debate online over whether it does or does not sexualize children, but what's interesting to see is the way that it's been received in the film industry. And it probably won't shock you to find out that, as it just so happens, among film critics, this film has been very well received. They don't see any problem with it. As the Times continues, in France, where the film was released in theaters on August 19th, Cuties has not stirred any controversy. Clarisse Fabre, reviewing the film for Le Monde, said, "The filmmaker skillfully refrains from passing judgment on the very explicit sexualization of the dance routines." She named it a must-see, and Le Figaro, another newspaper, also labeled it a film to see. Reviewers at Sundance didn't see the film as fetishistic either. The sight of twerking preteen bodies is explicitly explicitly designed to shock mature audiences into a contemplation of today's destruction of innocence, wrote Screen Daily. Whenever there's controversy over a movie or a TV show, if it is at all possible, I really do try to actually watch the thing for myself before I comment on it, just so I can actually know what I'm talking about. But with Cuties, it really does look like I won't be able to watch the movie until September 9th when it releases on Netflix. And I looked everywhere online trying to find a copy I could buy and stream. And heck, I was even willing to watch it in French just so I could actually look at the material for myself. But alas, no such luck. So, I mean, with this, I sadly just have the trailers and the reviews to go off of. But in my opinion, and I would of course love to know what you all think about this, regardless of the movie's overall message, the child actors who appear in the film are being sexualized, right? These little girls aren't any less bare or any less twerking in the movie based off what the director is trying to convey. And it's actually kind of ironic, if you ask me, because it seems like by allegedly trying to comment on how bad sexualizing children is, it seems like this director has herself sexualized children, because whatever her intentions may have been because of this movie, there exists that god-awful promotional poster, those horrifying and disgusting scenes in the trailer and the movies. And it's frustrated me how in none of the pieces about this movie have any film critics or insiders commented on that. Everyone seems so concerned and preoccupied with what the overall message and meaning and theme of the film is, and no one seems to care about what these actual children who appear in the movie have had to do in order to convey this theme. And it really does seem like the people who are defending this film don't understand for even a second what the people who are angry about. It just seems like if this director really did want to comment on the sexualization of children in our society, there were a lot of other ways she could have done that didn't involve also sexualizing children. And again, even though I haven't actually seen this movie for myself, which is regrettable, I do kind of question whether it is the bold condemnation of child exploitation that the director claims it is, just based off of what other reviewers have said. For example, this one quote stuck out to me. This person said that the filmmaker skillfully refrains from passing judgment on the very explicit sexualization of the dance routines. If this movie was really made to let us all know how awful it is to sexualize children, which I agree with it is, then shouldn't there be some sort of judgment when children are sexualized in the film? That kind of seems like a disconnect to me. And another quote that I wanted to highlight was when this reviewer said that the sight of twerking preteen bodies is explicitly designed to shock mature audiences into a contemplation of today's destruction of innocence. Maybe we're into a whole debate about whether the ends justify the means here, but I do think it's ironic that in order to highlight the destruction of innocence in our culture, this director herself partook in the destruction of innocence by making these child actors do those dance routines, and not only do them, but also film it and show it to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of adults around the world. And to further highlight how I just really do not agree with the people defending this movie, I also wanted to bring up this article from Forbes titled "The Controversy Over Netflix's Cuties is Totally Ridiculous." In the article, it reads that Parents Television Council President Tom Winter condemned the movie in a statement by saying the only motivation for producing such a film is to sexualize children and to fuel the appetites of those who would feed on the sexualization of children. To which the author responds that, if I may, that such a motive could be the only reason for making a movie focusing on young girls coming to terms with their sexuality says a lot. Maybe, just maybe, Decoré's a black woman, by the way. How that's relevant, by the way, I have no idea. Maybe Decoré's feature is intended for young girls who themselves are coming to terms with their sexuality and or their potentially discomforted parents. Just so we're clear, this movie may be about children, but it's definitely not for children. On Netflix, it's rated TVMA, which means mature audiences. And no, 11-year-olds should not be watching something that is rated for mature audiences. And in regard to, oh, it's just a learning lesson for parents, teaching parents a lesson about how to raise their children, in my opinion, is not a good enough reason to sexualize child actors like this film has done. If you want to teach parents a lesson, you know what? write a book, give a TED talk. Do not, and I cannot stress this enough, do not put an 11-year-old in booty shorts and a crop top and tell her to twerk. The author then writes that once again, it's up to girls to protect boys and men from their own uncontrollable libidos. The notion of a girl's coming of age need not be defined by boys and men who might see that as a license to do harm. I honestly cannot believe that I need to explain this, but no, sexualizing children is not just wrong because of how predators might react to it, although that is a part of it and a huge part of it, but sexualizing children is also just plain not acceptable because children, in light of the fact that they are children, are just not mentally ready to deal with all of the complexities and nuances and difficulties that come with sexuality. And it's just really strange that this writer would even think to try to spin the situation into us needing to protect men from their own controllable libidos versus needing to protect children. It really does seem like none of these journalists care at all about the children who were involved in this movie and who were sexualized by this movie. The children that so many people online are concerned for. No, I don't think they should have had to put on those clothes, learn those dance routines, or become familiar with the themes that the movie seems to present. Just because as an adult you might find a certain subject interesting, that doesn't make it okay for you to take children and use them as pawns in your artwork for your entertainment. And I think that's really what the core of the issue is. And just because a child may eventually become interested in an adult topic like sexuality, that doesn't mean that they're actually ready to be introduced to it. And it's up to us as adults to, yes, answer their questions in an age-appropriate manner whenever they may have them, but to also shield them from things they are not ready to deal with. That's pretty much all I have to say though, and as always, I would love to know what you all think. Do you believe that the outrage over cuties was warranted, or do you think that everything has just been kind of hyped up unnecessarily? And considering that Netflix is still going ahead and releasing this movie, does that change how you may feel about supporting the streaming service? Let me know, but that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Netflix is a woke company. To be silent is complicit. Black Lives Matter. We have a platform and we have a duty to our black members, employees and creators and talent to speak up. 1 million likes. My goodness, that was popular. And of course they've got loads of Black Lives Matter content, which I don't object to. I don't care if people who support movements that I don't care for want to watch this kind of content. I find it a bit annoying that they're like, but this movement cancels your movement out. You're not allowed to now watch these particular sketch shows because people who support Black Lives Matter will find this offensive. So, okay, well, that's kind of weird. But then they start going into really weird and what I consider to be, frankly, disgusting things. This is a show called Big Mouth. It came out in 2017, and it's written by some people who were trying... And again, I haven't seen this, so I'm just judging on what I have read about it from their own words. And apparently this is a very adult Netflix show that can really help kids discover themselves sexually. Now, I watched this trailer. I kind of wanted to vomit. I'm not really a person who's particularly sensitive on anything, to be honest. But I just really found it weird that this is meant to be a 13-year-old girl, and some monster and a talking vagina are encouraging her to masturbate. And this whole trailer is just about children learning about sex. I mean, this like that one that I just had there was about incest. That word, you can't see that, is incest. That's sucking on this monster's breast for some reason. I mean, I guess it's meant to be ultra edgy humor. And that's fine. Ultra edgy humor is fine. It's just weird. Really, really weird. And again, as the creators say, this is meant to help support people going through puberty, but I wouldn't show this to a child that was going through puberty. I mean, you know, I would put an 18 rating on this because it seems to be really kind of gross. And so at the end of it, you're thinking, that is interesting. I wonder who's going to get in trouble for all of this. I wonder if the writers of this are ever going to somehow find themselves in trouble with the authorities. Because I can't help but feel that the kind of people who write this kind of thing probably are eventually going to find themselves in trouble with the authorities. But I'm not casting aspersions. I'm not making allegations. As far as I'm aware, there are no allegations against the writers of Big Mouth. And so we'll carry on. We'll carry on to Cuties, Mignons, which is a French film that Netflix marketed like this. You probably heard of this. This is not breaking news or anything. This is also absolutely disgusting. This follows a Somalian Muslim child who decides to rebel against... I haven't seen this either, by the way, so I'm commenting on things I haven't seen, so take that with a pinch of salt. Take that, you know, I may well be misrepresenting this, but I don't think I'll be watching this, because this Somalian immigrant a girl to France and her conservative Muslim family, she wants to rebel against them and join, as Netflix described it, a twerking dancing crew. And I mean, this is gross, and if I don't see how you can say this isn't sexualizing children. And man, the whole thing really was really quite vile. You can, I mean, just look at the way they're posing. It's inappropriate in the most extreme way. And so people like the hypersexualization of young black girls is the worst thing ever. Other races can have stories centered around love, adventure, finding themselves, but black women get an 11-year-old black girl plus company twerking and being sexualized. Everyday hate Netflix not more. Well, again, to be honest with you, it's not really about them being black, is it? You know, they're like, as you can see, it's not just black, but this is the person that the child that the entire series revolves around. And then you get replies like this: Map Lover 69, but it's so fucking hot. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. That's what this is encouraging. So, the diagnosis appears that Netflix is turning into Nonsflix, and there was a lot of backlash to this, and God, was this rightly deserved. You get what you fucking deserve, Netflix. Why are you doing this? That's the question. Why does this have to be done? Right? This got backlash from everywhere. I mean, Muslim people who, like this video that went viral, they say, well, this is Islamophobic, because you see the mother like slapping the child and being very overbearing to her. And honestly, I'm just like, yep, go mother. You know, prevent her from joining this twerking dancing crew at 11 years old. Holy God. You know, and this Muslim woman was exactly right through her critique. She's like, this is a child, this is sexualizing children, this is disgusting. Exactly right. Yes, it is. And so people started asking Netflix, do you support paedophilia? A simple yes or no will suffice. And poor old Mary at Netflix, and let's not blame just the rando behind the keyboard who's working in tech support or, you know, customer support in Netflix, who's just like, what has happened now? I don't think that Mary has any particular interest in defending this, but all she can say is, we cannot really comment on that, but while we believe in creative freedom at Netflix, we respect all religions and their cultures, traditions, and values. Just say no. Just say no. It's totally uncontroversial. Map Lover 69 might be offended, but fuck that guy. Fuck him. Like, it doesn't matter if you offend that guy. That guy's fine. It's fine to offend. He's desirable to offend that guy. Everyone else on earth is like, yeah, you can just say no. We'll take your word. Just say no. It's fine. This is the Rotten Tomatoes. And I tell you what, man, I haven't seen it, but the audience, I'm willing to take their opinion on it. 82% of critics are in favor of it. Is that right? That's weird, but it tells you a lot about film critics, doesn't it? The audience, 4%. Right, that's the rough estimate of the population that we have to be worried about here. Like, 96% of people got it right. There's a change.org petition with nearly 300,000 signatures to get this removed from Netflix, because, as the Muslim woman earlier said, it looks like softcore child porn to her, and I'm inclined to agree. I mean, look at the description here. Amy, 11, becomes fascinated with a twerking dance crew. Hoping to join them, she starts to explore her femininity, defying her family's conservative values or something like that. It's like, yeah, what are you doing? Like, what audience are you pitching this to? You know, just like with Big Mouth, like, theoretically, you're not aiming this at children, are you? You know, you're not trying to sexualize children and get them to twerk and join dancing. I mean, like, what are you doing? The director deleted her Twitter account, wisely so, and even 4chan would not allow imagery from this film to be posted. And 4chan allows some of the most disgusting things in the world to be posted. But honestly, good on them. Good on them. Netflix updated the description from what it was previously to 11-year-old Amy starts to rebel against her conservative family's traditions when she becomes fascinated with a free-spirited dance crew. And what was it that you said about this, Netflix? Well, you said, we're deeply sorry for the inappropriate artwork that we used for Cuties. It was not okay, nor was it representative of this French film which won an award at Sundance. We've now updated the pictures and description. Two things here, Netflix. One, the fact that it's French is not exactly something in your defense. This does seem like the sort of thing that would be acceptable in France. And secondly, the co-founder of the Sundance Film Festival is a convicted paedophile. So if Sundance Film Festival gives this an award, all I'm saying is that's not an endorsement. That's not an endorsement that anyone should be accepting. Apart from, of course, MapLover69. I'm honestly shocked that their defense was, well, this French pedo said it was okay. Like, why is that your defense, Netflix? I'm not impressed with it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it's such a ridiculous defense over something that is obviously disgusting and looks like it was made for French pedos. I mean, not just French pedos, pedos everywhere look like they're into this. And you've put the liberal, the atheist liberal, completely in line with the Islamic mother on this, saying, no, this is disgusting. What are you doing? Perhaps it's just because we're both parents or something. And we look at this and think this is not something you should be doing to children, and God only knows who you've created this for. This looks like it was created for pedos. What are you doing? It's signed off by a pedo, then that's fine, isn't it? And as with everything woke, and it really is a consistent pattern with wokeness, is a persistent attempt to erase borders and boundaries. The idea that there should be a closed-off area, something that is sacred, for example, a child's innocence, is something that is continually attacked and eroded and tried to break through with wokeness. And it's not the first time that a woke company or a woke person has been trying to push the boundaries on this. It's absolutely vile. I don't know why you're doing it. And I understand why so many people are just going through and going, no, I'm cancelling, not having any of this.
If you've been feeling a little black-pilled lately, feeling like our culture is all going to hell and that our society is run by a bunch of elite pedophiles who don't care about your children and actually want to actively hurt them, then I'm afraid to tell you that you might actually be right, because Netflix has been promoting this new film called Cuties, which is about 11-year-olds who are in a twerking dance competition. For those of you who are unfamiliar, twerking is basically shaking your butt to music. It's a very sexual form of dance, and it's definitely inappropriate for any children to be partaking in. And the most disturbing part of this promotion, perhaps, was the photo that they used to share this film, or share the fact that this film was going to appear on Netflix, because it featured 4 young girls who were around the age of 11. One of them was on all fours. The other was in the process of shaking her behind, and another one was posed in sort of a squatting, very sexual position. All four of them wearing very skimpy outfits with the midriffs exposed. And this film is, again, called Cuties. So that was disgusting, and people were rightfully appalled by this, and they started going after Netflix for promoting this film and even allowing it to appear on their streaming platform. Netflix actually eventually apologized for the promotional photo, saying, quote, "We're deeply sorry for the inappropriate artwork that we used for Cuties. It was not okay, nor was it representative of this French film, which won an award at Sundance. We've now updated the pictures and description." Now let's go ahead and break down this apology, because you'll quickly see that it's actually bullshit. So first of all, the inappropriate artwork, where did it come from? Were these stills from the movie? Because if so, if this was just pictures that they took from the movie itself, then that shows it was in fact representative of the film, because it's a scene that appears in the film. If this is not a still from the film, and they actually went out of their way to pose the girls like this for a promotional photo, then that's even more disgusting, because they knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew that they were making this photo in a way to make these girls appear sexual. They also point out that the film won an award at Sundance, as if that is supposed to make us feel better. Oh, well, it's just art. See, it was even awarded at Sundance at a very prestigious film festival. No, actually, that's worse, because it shows that it's not just a Netflix problem. This is a Hollywood problem. This is an art problem where young children are routinely sexualized and seen through a pedophilic gaze, because this is an industry that is filled with disgusting people who exploit children and exploit sex to make money. That is sick. And it's a reality. It's a sad reality that our entertainment industry, particularly Hollywood, is filled with pedophiles who use children for their own ends. So many of these poor young people who come up through places like Disney and Nickelodeon end up being abused and taken advantage of, and then they grow up with these awful problems. I mean, you see people like Lindsay Lohan and the Olsen twins and all of these poor children who are just exploited by adults who should know better, but use them for their own ends. And Netflix is perpetuating this problem by showing this film Cuties. And then when you go and actually read the description of this film and watch the trailer, you will discover that it's a very anti-religious film, because the whole point is that this 11-year-old girl who wants to join this twerking dance team is in a family that is Muslim and very traditional, and her parents don't want her to be sexualizing herself at her very young age. But somehow this family, who is rightfully concerned about their child getting involved in this dance crew, is painted as, of course, the crazy religious people who are oppressive and misogynistic. It couldn't possibly be that they actually care about their child. And it's very demonic, actually, that this is a film that promotes this idea of the hypersexualization of women and young women and children at the expense of the religious traditions that make attempts to protect them. And everything about this is just so disturbing. It's really indicative of where our culture has gone over the past 10, 20 years, where it is cool, it is normal for young women to be used in this way, to expose themselves in this way for clout or for money. And people who oppose this are, of course, called prudes. They're accused of being, sexist or misogynist because they're worried about the fact that women are being exploited. And of course, we saw this song come out recently with Cardi B called WAP, which stands for Wet Ass Pussy. And I'm sure you all have seen the videos of people reading the lyrics, which are absolutely sickening. And this is something that was considered empowering by women. I mean, some of the artists involved in this song were in videos talking about how it made them feel empowered, that they were able to talk about sex in such a debasing and really, a way that emphasizes the lowest common denominator. This is not sensuality. This is not romance. This is just pure dirty sex, this song. And it's things like this and things like this Netflix film Cuties that show the degradation of our culture, the exploitation of our children. And I really just can't emphasize enough how concerning this is, how disturbing it is. And it really just, I see it and it just depresses me. Everything about it is depressing. And there has to be a way that we can work to get our culture back to a place where we have respect for women's bodies and we don't expose them unnecessarily. We have respect for children and we try to protect our children. And that is really the call to patriots, is we have to do something about this. We cannot allow these tech companies, these entertainment companies, to destroy our families and destroy our culture. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough.
Okay, this is disturbing, not a coincidence. Out of New York Post, this is from August 6th, 5 days ago. Hasbro pulls Trolls doll after complaints it grooms children for abuse. Do they have the video? They do. Play the video here.
Okay, I wanted
This
to do a
truly
quick
is
video.
disturbing, and I don't think this is just a design accident. They know exactly what they're doing with this sexualization and subliminal messaging to young children. We've seen all the Disney stuff doing it. We know who's behind that. Who's behind
Okay,
Disney?
I wanted to do a quick video because I find this disturbing and I find it something that needs to be shared. As you all know, stuff that's been going on in the world about the sex trafficking in kids and things that are thrown in our kids' faces to kind of groom them and make them kind of a little bit more oblivious to things that are really happening. So it was my daughter's birthday a couple days ago, and she turned 2, and she was birthday.
Blah, blah, blah.
It says that if you push her tummy right here, sorry, it's glaring. If you push her tummy right here, she makes 10 phrases and sounds, and that's all it talks about, and it comes with a little comb. So, I mean, she does all that. You touch her tummy, and she makes little singing sounds, and she's super cute.
This is so deceptive.
Well, I was showing her
and
to
sneaky.
my husband, and I heard some other sounds that I had never heard before. And if you look down here, I figured a video was the best way. So I just touched her tummy, and she's going to sing for a minute. But down
Good
here
song.
is a button right here on her privates. And if you push
Literal. They put a button in her private parts, female genitalia.
those, she makes these sounds.
So evil.
Like a gasping sound.
Made by
And I know some of
perverts.
you may not like
Exactly.
think this is a big deal, but especially since I've had kids, like this is wrong. For one, this button, it says nothing about this button on the box. Nothing.
So crazy.
It's just there. And it makes a gasping sound when you touch her privates. And to me, it's just like sexual sounds, and it's so disturbing.
How did they think they were going to get away with this? Imagine the chutzpah to think that you could get away. No, somebody wasn't going to make a video about this. Somebody wasn't going to raise the alarm. I mean, it's so obvious that this is grooming children. What does the box say? It says for ages. It says, what is it? Ages, not for children under 3. Reminds me of the Talmud, right? Under 3, it doesn't count. Okay, I don't see the age group, but it's for young girls to teach them if they touch their hoo-has, they'll make giggly noises. Just incredible. And what do you know? Early life check every single time. Hassenfeld brothers, the 3 Polish Jewish brothers, incorporated textile business. So the Brian Goldner is an American business executive and film producer. He's the chief executive officer, CEO of the American toy media company Hasbro. Brian Goldner. Brian Goldner. So it was founded by Polish-Jewish Hassenfeld brothers and is currently run by a Jewish millionaire, Brian Goldner, the company's chairman and CEO. Imagine my shock. What a coincidence. Every single time. Seriously. Every single time. And, oh wait, I think they pulled it from the shelves too. Pole's doll. Amazing. I should say, like, this shouldn't shock me, but it still does shock me. They cease to amaze me. Incredible. Now, another very upsetting and disturbing story that's mostly being ignored by the media out of Daily Mail. 5-year-old boy is shot dead at point-blank range by neighbor who is 25 as he... So the 5-year-old white boy is shot by the 25-year-old black neighbor. If it was the other way around, it would be headline news everywhere. If a white man shot a white 25-year-old man shot a 5-year-old black boy, it would be headline news, breaking news all over the leftist media right now. And they would say black and white in the headline, but they don't here. Executed this little boy, this 5-year-old boy, your neighbor. Imagine shooting your kid, your neighbor's kid, because he rode the bike in your front yard. Executed him in front of his brother, his 2 sisters, 8 and 7. Darius Sessoms, 25, charged with murder. 5-year-old Cannon. This little boy executed for riding his bike. Mainstream media doesn't even make a fuss about it. If it was the other way around, the latest installment in If This Was the Other Way Around, there won't be any protests, there won't be any riots, there won't be any massive, there's a GoFundMe. I don't think they'll shut down the GoFundMe, but they might. It wouldn't surprise me. GoFundMe shut down incredible things before. Incredibly biased and political. But the whole world gets turned upside down. Hundreds of millions get donated by all the establishment to Black Lives Matter when the body cam footage just came out, released two months later. Floyd George, foaming from the mouth, drugged up on fentanyl and all types of other stuff, out of his mind, says he can't breathe before he even is on the ground. Died from a heart attack from drug overdose, basically. Held a home invasion of a pregnant woman, robbed her home at gunpoint to her pregnant belly. Turned into Saint Floyd George. All of this. It becomes the biggest news story. Politicians get down and kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. But we have stories like this basically every day that the media ignores. They blow out of proportion the ones that fit their narrative and ignore and suppress the ones that don't. It's so obvious. I could say it every day. Everybody says it all the time, but nothing changes because who owns the media? Who's instigating this? Who's pushing the narrative?
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. This is extremely important, but I must warn you, it's very disturbing information. So I'd like to begin this one with Luke 17:2. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones. So again friends, before we begin, the reason I'm doing this video is because the world must know. But fair warning, once you know, you can't unknow. As I read this article in its entirety, something I rarely ever do on a video of my own, I want you to recall the Instagram post from Jimmy Comet in which he, Alephantis, wrote #murder. And working on my night cheese, whose specialty is building child-sized coffins, wrote #killroom. While another wrote just a pile of money under a sheet, and still another wrote just rinse it off when you're done. What are these people talking about? What are they referring to? The mainstream media would have you believe this is normal banter. I also want you to recall the films Hostel and Hostel 2, which I've previously stated are not acts of fiction, but rather fictional documentaries. These things are most foul, and they do happen, and they are happening in the world right now. You'll recall these disturbing murals in Brussels that popped up on buildings in 2017. This one which recalls specifically a scene from one of those Hostel movies. And one last thing before I begin reading this article. Recall the mainstream media's stance on these types of horrors, running cover for them and claiming endlessly that things like this don't happen and that anyone who claims they do is delusional. These mainstream media institutions literally run cover for child sex traffickers and proprietors of satanic ritual abuse and murder.
This is how conspiracy theories are threaded together, lie by lie.
There is very real blood on their hands. Here's the article from BizPackReview.com. Italian teens arrested for paying with Bitcoin to see children tortured and murdered on the dark web. Written by Vivek Saxena, July 19, 2020. Two 17-year-old Italian teens, a boy and a girl, were reportedly arrested last week after using Bitcoin to purchase access to a dark web live stream of children being sexually abused, tortured, and murdered. The two were arrested as part of an operation known as Deliro, which is the Italian word for delirium, that began last October according to a report published Wednesday in the Italian-language newspaper Il Messaggero. In their texts to each other, authorities said the boy told his friend about the Red Rooms live streams, where videos of executions, murders, dismemberments, sexual acts on animals, organ removals, castrations, and child pornography against very young children could all be viewed. Images reportedly shared between the two, seized by law enforcement, include pornographic videos self-made by children, videos adults made of minors sexually assaulting children between the ages of 2 and 4, and gory videos involving Nazi symbology. Operation Delirio has thus far led to the arrests of 25 people, 19 of whom were under the age of 18. Sadly, the dark web live stream where these red rooms are hosted still remain online. It's believed the live streams are likely carried out in Southeast Asia. It's further known that most of the live streams end with the child being killed. The people who operate the streams reportedly charge exorbitant sums of money to let viewers dictate what happens next to the child. Investigative activities, which continued after the execution of dozens of searches last autumn, brought to the surface, the investigators explain, the darkest and most dramatic part of the circumstantial findings, that relating to the deep web, an encrypted internet context where images of heinous violence circulate, even in live situations in which users who have managed to access these hidden environments are allowed to interact in conducts of sexual violence and torture on minors carried out directly by adults. Live requests have very significant costs and ensure very high profits for foreign organizations that carry out such inhumane acts. News of this operation comes only days after 6 men who'd planned on using makeshift prisons and torture chambers to torture and potentially kill a number of victims were arrested. Check this out, friends. Dutch police arrested 6 men on kidnapping and serious assault charges. Police say they found makeshift torture chambers containing a dentist chair, handcuffs, cutters, scalpels, and pliers, and police say they were likely intended to torture victims.
Outside. Take it.
And again, friends, I want you to recall that Instagram post from Jimmy Comet, James Alefantis, #KillRoom. Dutch police arrested 6 men after discovering sea containers that had been converted into a makeshift prison and soundproofed torture chamber, complete with a dentist's chair, tools including pliers and scalpels and handcuffs, a high-ranking officer announced Tuesday, Time magazine reported on July 7th. Authorities said police conducted the raid before the torture chamber could be used and alerted potential victims who went into hiding. The grisly discovery was made last month by officers investigating leads generated by data from encrypted phones used by criminals that were cracked recently by French police. Detectives in Britain and the Netherlands have already arrested hundreds of suspects based on the encrypted messages. And listen to this line, friends. Apparently torturing people is popular among European deviants. Friends, this has been going on for centuries, and those of us who have called attention to it and shined the light of truth on it get demeaned and disparaged and even libeled and slandered by the mainstream mockingbird horror media. What's not clear is whether the activities in Britain and the Netherlands were also linked to the dark web. What's known is that reports about dark web torture rooms have been circulating for years now. Yet according to the habitually wrong, left-wing American mainstream media, such reports are all figments of people's imagination. In 2015, Vice magazine claimed, live streaming torture is the dark web's favorite hoax. And here's that article. This weekend, hoaxers said they would live stream the torture and murder of 7 ISIS terrorists. That same year, the Washington Post described red rooms as one of the most stubborn myths. As evidence, the paper cited the claims of an Australian journalist, Eileen Ormsby. The answer, she writes, is pretty simple. The dark stuff does not and never has existed. The exception is child porn, but that's generally not what deeper web people are looking for. Now keep in mind, this is the Washington Post and Vice. There's a multitude of evidence to back Ormsby's claim, chief among it the fact that there is never actually first-hand evidence of red rooms, hitmen, and their ilk. and that such operations have never been busted in the FBI's increasingly frequent dark web raids, the Post claimed. Yet 4 years later, the evidence seems fairly clear-cut. This tweet from the National Crime Agency in the UK, HurtCore, refers to hidden dark web forums dedicated to the discussion and image and video sharing of rape, murder, sadism, torture, pedophilia, blackmail, humiliation, and degradation. Dated December 27, 2017. And this tweet from the Australian Federal Police, the AFP, we are seeing rape and torture of our children for sexual gratification. They use the dark web like a weapon. They use encryption like a sword and anonymity like a shield. AFP Commissioner Reese Kershaw on encryption and online child exploitation. Dated February 18, 2020. And this article from BizPackReview.com concludes, or does the Washington Post think the evidence is a hoax too, just like everything else? Save, of course, for the Russian collusion delusion hoax. Friends, again, the title of this article is Italian Teens Arrested for Paying with Bitcoin to See Children Tortured and Murdered on the Dark Web. Blood and gore. Brussels asks how far street art can go. January 27, 2017. They flaunt it in our faces, friends, just like those 2 pages from the Pinocchio story that I read in my last video. They traffic in children. They sell children. They sacrifice children, just like what was depicted in the movies Hostel and Hostel 2. But if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. And I'll conclude this video, friends, with just 2 phrases from Q. Number 1, sunlight kills. And number 2, you have more than you know. Share this information far and wide, friends. Pizzagate and Pedogate are very, very real. Jimmy Savile was just the tip of the iceberg, and so was Comet Ping Pong. And for real news 24/7, you can visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda and mockingbird mainstream media lies. God bless. Bye-bye.
after his 13-year-old showed him a poster hanging on a classroom door, a poster listing sex acts.
The poster was hanging in a classroom in Hawker Grove Middle School in the Shawnee Mission School District, and Mark Ellis says if what it lists is part of the curriculum needs to change. And we do want to warn you, one parent found it objectionable, and you may too. Late last week, Mark Ellis's 13-year-old daughter showed him a picture of this poster.
Why would you put it in front of 13-year-old students?
He thought the poster, which lists things like oral sex and grinding, might have been a prank, until he contacted the school principal and was told it was a teaching material.
The poster that you reference is actually a part of our middle school health and science materials, and so it is a part of our district approved curriculum. However, the item is meant to be part of a lesson, and so certainly as a standalone poster without the context of the teacher-led discussion, I could see that there might be some pause for concern.
But Ellis is now concerned that what's on this poster is being taught to his 13-year-old in school.
Who approved this? You know, this had to pass through enough hands that someone should have said, hey, wait a minute, these are 13-year-old kids.
District spokesperson Leanne Neal says the poster needs to be viewed in the context of a bigger curriculum, which she calls abstinence-based for students in middle school.
The curriculum is part of, it aligns with national standards around those topics, and it's a part of our curriculum in the school district.
But Ellis thinks if that's the case, the curriculum needs to change.
This has nothing to do with abstinence or sexual reproduction, actually, a lot of these things. I would like to see that this particular portion of this curriculum is removed from the school.
And if the curriculum doesn't change, Ellis plans to remove his daughter from the sexual education classes. We're told the poster has since been taken down. The district spokesperson says the main issue is that it should have never been left up after the lesson had ended. Ellis says he feels parents have a right to know what their children are learning, and he wants other parents to know that this is now part of the curriculum.
In kindergarten, that's right, along with snack time and nap time, some very young children may soon be learning about anatomy and reproduction. The Chicago public school system is considering starting sex ed in kindergarten instead of 5th grade. Good idea or not? The 5 co-hosts, Andrea Tantaros joins us. Nice to see you, Andrea.
Good to see you too, Greta.
All right, so what's up with this? What do you think about this?
What is the world coming to? I mean, I remember getting a health class in 8th grade and then 11th grade, but it was nothing like this, Greta. I mean, these are 5-year-old kids, and I would argue we're just raising our kids too quickly. But these are standards that any school could adopt. Chicago just chose to adopt them, so they could be coming to a school near you.
All right, now you can opt out of them if you want for your children, but you've got, I mean, I suppose there are a lot of parents, for better or for worse, who are not necessarily paying attention to what's going on in these classrooms. Does that mean fair? I mean, not every parent is attentive, so it's like this could slip through the cracks. It's not opting in, it's opting out.
That's right. Parents have the choice, but a lot of parents might not know this is going on. Look, it's a larger problem. There's a breakdown of the family. You know, we used to get this kind of education from our parents, from our churches, from our communities. And now there's a lot of kids who don't have that. And so the government is stepping in, which I think this is not the government's role to do this. And you know what, Greta? It's not very good when the government tries to start teaching values. They're not very good at it. Now, look, I realize with technology, it's hard to not to advocate for these kids, abstain. But I wonder, is abstinence part of this? I looked over the entire report and I didn't see any part of that.
Whose idea is this? I mean, is this the school district that's coming up with this, or the school, or the state, or the county? Who's coming up with this?
This is the city of Chicago. And Greta, what's really sad is the city of Chicago has bigger problems to deal with than sex ed. Right now, only 60% of Chicago high school students graduate. Only 6% graduate from college. And reading and math levels for 8th graders are at 20 and 21% respectively. So I would argue this school district has a lot of other priorities besides teaching kids about condoms, how to put on a condom, gender roles in society. One of the things they are teaching is bullying. I think that actually might be a smart lesson for some kids. But some of this other stuff, I was reading the report, Greta, it's been researched by the Kennedy School, NPR, the Kaiser Institute, a lot of libs getting their hands in your kids' education. I think it's really scary, particularly for 5-year-olds Greta, I called a friend of mine before the show. His 5-year-old was up. I said, what's she talking about right now? He said unicorns and dinosaurs. So it's the last magical stage of your life. I think we're corrupting our kids a little bit too soon.
Andrea, thank you, and congratulations on the big success of the 5 at 5.
Thank you so much,
Teaching
Greta.
10-year-olds the, quote, pleasures of sex. The folks at the International Planned Parenthood Federation apparently think that is a great idea. That group making the recommendation that's what we should teach our 10-year-olds in a new report titled Stand and Deliver. And by the way, they want that teaching to be mandatory. It is a suggestion that has critics calling Planned Parenthood a bunch of, quote, sex-obsessed adults. But is that fair? Joining me now, Fox News contributor and radio talk show host Monica Crowley. All right, Monica. This Planned Parenthood domestic won't comment on that because they say it's from our international branch and they're closed. We can't reach them right now. But they want this mandatory that we have not just sex ed for 10-year-olds, sex ed, but to teach them, quote, the pleasures of sex.
Right. There are plenty of times, and there's plenty of time in somebody's life to learn the pleasures of sex. A 10-year-old should not be taught that. And here we've got an international organization that clearly wants to dictate to the domestic Planned Parenthood organization to set these guidelines for public schools and organizations. They essentially want the government to put this in place to force the role of sex education onto schools and teachers and the rest, supplanting the parents. This is the parent's role, Megan. This is not the role of anybody else except a parent. If a parent deems that their 10-year-old is growing and starting puberty early and maturing early, then it should be the parent's responsibility and the parent's right to say, gee, maybe my child needs a little bit more education here in terms of the birds and the bees, which now seems like a very quaint notion, right?
Yes.
Birds and the bees. But to hand it off to bureaucrats, whether it's international or domestic bureaucrats or even your kid's teacher, is ludicrous to me. It is an absolute, I think, a total grabbing of control over what should remain in parents' hands.
You know, I asked our brain room to do some research on what 10-year-olds are learning right now in school, and you might be interested to know. This is what the average 10-year-old is learning in a 5th grade. Addition and subtraction of fractions, using dictionaries, reading aloud.
Yes.
The pleasures of sex.
Yeah, no.
That's what they want to add to the list?
What's wrong with that list? The last one.
Well, let me take the other side, because it's obviously, I mean, I called it ridiculous in the tease, which is clearly editorializing. But I mean, can't we agree on anything that 10-year-olds should not be taught the pleasures of sex in class? All right, but let me take the other side. People say teen pregnancy is now trickling down. There was a story last week of an 11-year-old who gave birth. And the argument is people like that, kids like that, need to be taught because their parents aren't teaching them about contraceptives and so on.
Again, individual responsibility. Parents, parental role models, even I would say religious leaders, if they make a moral judgment. I mean, I think the problem here is that you've got an organization, Planned Parenthood, that is very aggressive on sex education, very aggressive on pro-choice and pushing the abortion option onto people of all ages, frankly. You have them coming at this with a political agenda. And my fear is that it is actually removing the role of parents, and if parents aren't present, other kinds of moral leaders, religious leaders, Megan, that can actually put sex into a greater context for
kids. They don't want that.
Right?
This is the issue Planned Parenthood has. They say, in the study, they say fundamentalists and other religious groups, including the Catholic Church and others, have imposed tremendous barriers to young people obtaining information related to sex. And they say currently many religious teachings deny the pleasurable and positive aspects of sex. They want the church out of the business of sex education.
That's exactly the statement that I zoned in on when I read this piece, Megan, because they set aside for particular criticism the Catholic Church, they set aside Islam, the Muslim religion, and some others saying, oh, well, they're blocking our kids from understanding the pleasures of sex, not the dangers, not unwanted pregnancy, the pleasures of sex. That's what this emphasis is, and that's why it's so outrageous.
Because it's not done until you're 16 years old.
It's so unbelievable, Megan, but this is, again, this is a very secular, progressive agenda. And I think parents in this country, around the world, should stand up and say, this is our responsibility, because what we want to do for our 10-year-olds, our 12-year-olds, our 16-year-olds, our 18-year-olds, for God's sakes, is to give them some context for sex, whether it's religious, moral, values, religious, you name it. Yeah. But that is not present in this agenda.
You know, we're going to stay on this. We're going to continue pushing the domestic Planned Parenthood for a statement on this. I mean, I think some people may think, all right, it's international, it's The Netherlands Minister for Development Corporation, this guy Bert Koenders, who is backing this. So let's find out how the domestic Planned Parenthood feels about this and whether they are as far out as this.
Why can't we just let kids be kids, at least when they're 5? Now we have sex ed in kindergarten. This week, hundreds of outraged parents showed up at a school board meeting in Helena, Montana, carrying signs upset about the school district's plans for a new sex ed curriculum. Again, starting with kids as young as 5, teaching them about the body parts, proper terms. Here's a few of them: penis, vagina, nipples, testicles. For a 5-year-old, and you move on to 1st grade, taught about same-sex love. 5th grade, we get options for sex, including anal penetration. That's a 10-year-old. Hey, what about concentrating on math, science, English? Leave the parents to handle those delicate issues of morality that should be taught at home. Or maybe you think this is age appropriate. We need to be teaching this. This is News and Views. I think you know where I'm coming from. Where are you coming from on this one? Call us, 1-877-TEL-HLN. You go to Facebook, take our poll. Are kids in kindergarten too young for sex ed? We'll get to those in just a minute. Joining us to talk about it, welcome Dr. Bruce Messinger, superintendent at the Helena School District, who's in favor of this. Kathy Aruz with us, former high school teacher, editorial director, publisher, Catalina Magazine. We'll see what Kathy has to say about this. And on the phone, a parent in the district, Brian Ackerman, has 3 young daughters. What, a 1st grader, 3rd grader? You're going to have a kindergartner next year. Brian, your reaction to think that your little girls might be taught this, especially your youngest, who's going to be a kindergartner soon?
You know, right now my reaction, Mike, is I guess it's the lack of somebody that stepped up and said the age-appropriateness of this has been established by X, and X's qualifications are. More so right now, it seems that the material has been introduced, and the people that brought the curriculum together as a group decided, well, at this point it's age-appropriate, and we really haven't seen where that age-appropriateness comes from. You know, what's the impetus? What's the driving factor? Who decides this? When do they decide it? And how do they decide it?
Right. Well, let's ask Dr. Bruce Messinger. Bruce, seems to be a big question here. Who's deciding age appropriateness? Did you have parents involved as you were putting together this curriculum?
Our process was that as a part of the revamping of the curriculum is that we looked at what we had in place presently, looked at our practices within the district, and we also looked at national guidelines, national health standards, looked at the guidelines for sexual education, which were developed by a diverse set of organizations, and also looked at the American Academy of Pediatrics advice they would give on what would be age or developmentally appropriate to be introduced to children at different stages from elementary through middle school and high school. So we took guidance from that, as well as committee members that were pretty representative. Some included parents, yes.
Okay, but no parents. These were parents that were already on the board.
Actually, no board member. The board members were not involved in the creation of it. These are staff members and other members of the community, and some of our staff members, of course, are parents.
Okay, Brian, there was the answer for you. A lot of different sources. Is that good enough for you, or not specific enough?
Right now, it's not specific enough.
Okay.
I would like to see someone at some point step up and say, this is the group that established it. And as Dr. Messenger alluded to, you know, there was members of the community. With a community of 60,000 people, anytime you get a group of people together, you're going to have members of the community. That seems understandable. But part of the problem with the members of the community and the development of the curriculum is that they don't all support the curriculum holistically. The people that developed the 62-page document, of which 95%, if not 99% of it, is really, really good stuff. It's not something that we can attach 100% agreement with all of the committee members.
Brian, what's your biggest issue? What disturbs you the most? Is it to think your little 5-year-old is going to have to be naming some of those body parts I mentioned, uterus or nipple? Is it the thought of a 10-year-old being taught about different sexual options, including anal sex, or is it all of the above?
You know, there's 2 things that concern me most, and I know that's difficult to believe, but one is the fact that we don't have any implementation. You know, it starts by saying in the curriculum that people of the same gender can love each other. It doesn't immediately say that there is such thing as homosexual relationships, and that comes in later. But it seems understandable.
That comes in for 1st graders, let's say that, but go ahead.
It seems understandable that people of the same gender can love each other. I love my father, and my father loves me.
Right.
My daughters love their mother, and vice versa. But then it goes on to say, now we're going to tell you about homosexuality. So what seems as something that can be introduced as benignly as, you love your dad and your dad loves you, then becomes, and here is the reality of it is there's gay relationships out there. And the first thing, the first objection I have is that there isn't any sort of implementation in place right now that says this is how we're going to teach this.
Gotcha.
And if you read further into the document, it starts talking about the involvement of objects in sex.
Right, that's a little bit later, 5th and 6th grade. I want to get Kathy Rue in on this, and then we got some phone calls lined up as well. Kathy, to me, I'm a father myself. I think 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds being introduced to this, to me, it's too young. Your thoughts?
But they did consult with pediatricians, so I usually, as a mother, I listen to my pediatrician, and if he says this is what you should be doing, these are the foods you should introduce, I introduce those foods. So if the pediatricians actually said these are the topics you should introduce, then you put that into a curriculum. So if parents were doing such a great job with sex education over the years, we would have a lot less problems with teen pregnancy and teen sexually transmitted diseases. This is a problem in the United States, and this school district is actually trying to do something about it. And they have consulted with pediatricians. And
you don't have a problem with any of it, Kathy?
It's appropriate to me.
You don't have a problem with any of it?
I don't. It sounds like no. It sounds like they're teaching body parts and things that are facts of life, and I feel much more comfortable with my daughter learning about this in a classroom than in the hallway from a boy talking about lies that have to do with sex.
And that's the way that
I'd rather be in a controlled environment.
When most people think of Planned Parenthood, they think of the babies it kills through abortion or the mountains of birth control it dispenses. But another side to Planned Parenthood, which should be equally considered, is its obsession with sex. Sex toys, sex contests, sex balloons, penis-shaped balloons, penis cupcakes, vagina macaroons, vagina fruit roll-ups, giant vagina costumes. All of these things play a central role in Planned Parenthood's community activities. But what's truly shocking is how these perverts are allowed unfettered access to our children while raking in government cash to sell them unrestrained sex. Oh, Planned Parenthood will claim that what they teach kids is scientific and age-appropriate. But the fact of the matter is that age-appropriate is a standard concocted by Planned Parenthood itself so that it can sell pornography to kids as science. Why would they do this? Just as the goal of a drug dealer is to make drug addicts, Planned Parenthood's goal is to make sex addicts, and they follow the same business model. For instance, Planned Parenthood's gateway drug is masturbation. One of its primary resources for 10-year-olds is a book called It's Perfectly Normal, and it sells masturbation to kids with graphic images of naked boys and girls masturbating, men and women having sex, and even things like this, and this, and this. If a dirty old man showed these things to a 10-year-old kid in a park, he'd be arrested. But when Planned Parenthood shows them to kids in a classroom, it gets government money. But that's just the start. Once they get to high school, right about the time that they hit puberty, Planned Parenthood tells vulnerable teens stimulating and intimate things about sex. Just look at what its website for teens says. The link to Our Bodies takes teens to a page that provides graphic displays of genitals and tells them about how pleasurable the clitoris is and how pleasurable breasts are to touch and massage. This section, on sex and masturbation, encourages boys and girls to masturbate and tries to dispel any embarrassment or hesitation in trying it. It also describes orgasms and encourages anal sex and oral sex. This section, titled LGBTQ, tells young teens that all sexual orientations are perfectly normal. The page on homosexuality, titled Coming Out, displays a teenage boy in an intimate pose with what appears to be an adult man. This section explains how to have gay sex using a condom, dental dam, and even plastic wrap. And for their viewing pleasure, Planned Parenthood's got a few things for teens to watch.
There's a penis on my body. Awesome!
Being gay is a little like being left-handed.
Any protection?
Yeah, of course.
Amen.
Now this is a clitoral hood. See it?
Happy rap, better ring a rang dong. This is how the penis and vagina get along.
Go penis, go penis.
Twinkie trumpet gherkin.
Captain Winky Slong.
Time to go inside and find out.
Inside the vagina?
Calm down, Pete. You're leaking again.
It's bad enough that Planned Parenthood is conditioning children to engage in sexual activity with the kind of stuff that we've just shown you. But Planned Parenthood of Upper Hudson's youth program, which includes children as young as 13, requires participants to be exposed to sexual deviancy on parade. Literally. Planned Parenthood of Upper Hudson's application form for the STARS program for high school kids states that students as young as 13 are required to attend Capitol Pride. But this isn't just Planned Parenthood of Upper Hudson. As shown in this memo from 1969, Planned Parenthood's national goal is to restructure the family and encourage increased homosexuality as a sick form of population control. And that's why they expose our kids to stuff like this. Is it any wonder that 1 in 4 teenage girls has an STD? All this exposure to sex takes place before graduation from high school. When these kids go to college, they'll be bombarded with sex-themed parties put on by Planned Parenthood Vox groups. Here's a brief look at some of the different ways Planned Parenthood spills its pornographic material to undergrads. Like this poster of a penis monster attacking a naked girl in a condom bubble. Is this image from a Vox party something that Planned Parenthood considers medically accurate? Here's Planned Parenthood doing its part in reducing men and women to sex objects. A party with no pants and free safe sex kits? That just screams date rape. Maybe a Planned Parenthood sex workshop about pleasure, desire, and orgasms is more age appropriate. At least your sons and daughters can enjoy the vulva puppet show and leave with a free sex toy. What Planned Parenthood education booth would be complete without a fisting kit for homosexual college and teenage students? But hey, America can sleep well knowing that its tax money is being put to good use, right? This is what Planned Parenthood is all about. Get the kids addicted to sex so it can sell them birth control. When teens catch a sexually transmitted disease, it sells them testing services. And when a young girl gets pregnant, it sells her an abortion.
The Ontario election, yeah, I know it's a bit boring, but it's next week, and Ontario is a fairly important province. And look, as hard as it is to believe, it's claimed, we're going to find out, that the Liberals intend to try again to implement a sex education curriculum that teaches very young children some quite shocking sexual perversion. And now, please, before you say, oh, he's just a prude, look, I've got 4 kids, believe me, I know how it's done. I'm not, Britain is not a priggish society. It's not about that. It's about kids who still believe in Santa being taught about anal sex, oral sex, masturbation. Anyway, Teresa Pierre is a mother, 4 children, and she is representing the Ontario Catholic Parent Association. Welcome to you.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you're not an extremist. You're just a mom with 4 kids, and I don't think you've been that political in the past. But the curriculum, the Liberals tried to push this through. And they did try and push it through. A lot of people said, hold on, this isn't right. They want to do so again if they're elected. Is it really as bad as people say?
I would think so. I think that the general outcry from last time will just be repeated again once it's known.
So what's in it? What's in the curriculum?
Well, the sexual education component of the EIE policy is what we're talking about.
And EI education?
Education and inclusive education.
Inclusive education.
Right.
Okay.
So that's fine and dandy. It's supposed to be combating discrimination based on gender, race, and ability, and that's great.
I think that's a waste of time myself. I think kids are just kids and they're lovely. However, but the sex part of it is?
Well, they would introduce for grade 1s.
So that's 6 years old?
It's about 6 years old. Yeah. The anatomically correct terms for their genitalia. Grade 1. Do you want your kids, coming home and having that conversation with you?
Instead of well, in English, British English, instead of willy, what do they call it here? You can say it, don't worry, it's unused.
The word to use would be penis.
No, but what would you, to your kids, what would you say?
Well, I wouldn't have that discussion with them.
But it's their willy. If they don't have a wee, it's their willy, isn't
Private
it?
parts, I think.
Right, so you have to say penis to a 6-year-old.
Correct.
Okay, right.
Grade 3, they would introduce discussions of homosexuality and gender identity.
8 years old.
That's right.
At 8 years old, they're taught about homosexuality and transgendered, transsexual.
In a general way, and that
Right.
comes in again in grade 8.
Are many 8-year-olds actually saying, Mummy, Daddy, tell me all about the transgendered people, please? That's not what I experienced with my children.
Well, I don't think this is being prompted by the kids. Yeah, I think it's kind of a board initiative, really.
So they're talking about penis, vagina at 6 years old instead of the more childish terms. And these kids, of course, still wait for Santa every year. They're being told about homosexuality, transgender, transsexual.
Oh, it gets better, though.
At 8. Go on.
In grade 6, they're taught about masturbation. Grade 6.
So, and again, I'm a foreigner, so grade 6, they are, how old are they, 11?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, of course, no child ever realized what masturbation was in the history of humanity. You need to be told. And when kids are told, they're not going to say, oh, mustn't go any further with that. Of course, it's going to be the idea of temptation.
Well, they might, you know, we have the internet now. The information goes a lot faster than it did when we were kids.
So they're taught about masturbation at the age of 11. Okay, carry on.
Grade 7, we have anal and oral sex on the menu. Grade 7.
At 12?
Yes, I'm in grade
7. At 12, they're taught about anal and oral sex?
Yeah, not my kids.
What is the rationale given to why this is happening?
Well, there are a couple of reasons, I suppose. You have the need to conform the sex education curriculum was the immediate reason that McGinty and his advisors got together and put their heads together on that. After that, it was sold to the boards and administrators.
But look, you change something when it's broken. Now, kids are messy, odd, sometimes irritating, ultimately lovely individuals.
Not at all. I'm sorry.
And issues of sexuality have always been, I mean, this caricature of the embarrassed parent talking to their kids. My kids just learnt, and I think it was my wife, I can't really remember who, but anyway, it's wonderful how it happens. It can be a bit embarrassing for everyone concerned, but it all works. We continue to procreate. You know what this is about? It's an agenda. And I think a lot of it is driven by a homosexual agenda. Anal sex. They're trying to say everything is normal. Anything you do, anything you want to do is entirely acceptable, and I disagree with that.
Yeah, there's definitely an agenda contained between the lines there. And what they're really trying to do, I think, is to encourage approval among these kids. And there's a subliminal message in between all of this that they tell. For instance, grade 5 kids, there's a teacher prompt that you want the kids to come away saying, there are personal characteristics that are out of my control, including my gender identity and sexual orientation. Now, that means that the child who is sitting there hearing that, are they going to be able to express any doubts about the biological determinism in that statement?
So, children want to be children want to be dinosaurs. Children want to be dolphins. Children want to be all sorts of things. So if a little boy says, I want to be a girl, or a girl wants to be a boy, that's to be encouraged and affirmed.
Yeah, and taught to them if they had no prior idea of doing that.
What happens if a parent says, I don't actually approve of this, I'd rather my child didn't attend that particular class?
Kathleen Wynne did give a provincial guarantee at the time. In 2008, she gave a guarantee that parents would be able to opt their children out of these classes. Now,
does that still stand?
Well, in the Toronto board, it doesn't. In the Toronto board, parents are not allowed to opt their children out. They are not required to receive any notice that the classes are taking place.
Right.
And so really they've taken parental input into this equation out altogether.
Largest city in the country, Toronto, in the public board, if a parent, the primary educator, the parent is not to be informed if a child is learning about buggery and oral sex and masturbation at the age of 11 years old, 10 years old. If they do find out and object, but they're not... What if they just take the child out of class?
You have to know what's happening before you can take your child out of class.
Right. And if they do find out and they do take the child out of the class, are they reprimanded? Is the child given a detention?
I don't imagine that would happen, no.
But they're not allowed to. I mean, it would be like being absent,
it's just not going to happen, right? Until there's better communication between the boards, as there is, say, in Hamilton.
So a parent is told, We're not telling you. It's your child. You cope, you pay, you look after, you dry the tears, you're there when the pain. But we're going to indoctrinate your kids into this, and we're not going to tell you when we're going to do it.
We know better.
Look, no one should be bullied. I'm not a fool. I know what this is about. We all know what it's about. It's not about kids becoming more comfortable as sexual beings as they develop, and they should as they get 12, 13, 14, and 15.
Well, I'm not saying no information.
No, it should be loads of information.
Yeah,
but
I'm saying that the agenda does not have to be this strong.
If a child is gay, if any person is bullied, whatever their sexuality, colour, size, religion, bullying is wrong. It's not the nature of the victim of the bullying, it's the nature of the bullying.
But the schools have policies to keep their schools safe.
Of course they do.
That's right.
And all children are protected.
Why can't we just rest with the Safe Schools policy and change the content of this
if the Liberals are elected next week, this will be pushed through the provincial parliament?
Kathleen Wynne stated in comments to Extra Magazine that she expected that it would be reintroduced.
Okay, Kathleen Wynne, lesbian, was education minister. I know Kathleen, nice woman.
Good.
She's a very influential cabinet minister, would be in a Liberal government, told Extra, Radical Gay Magazine, that if they win, this will be the curriculum.
That is what I read in the paper.
You know what? I didn't even know if I would bother to vote next week. I think I will now. Thank you so very much indeed.
Oh, please do.
With the advent of the internet, easy access to porn has been a worry for parents. Even children not looking for it can stumble across it. Paul, who's now 24, became addicted to online porn at just 13. It dominated his life.
I knew exactly what I was doing was wrong, and that no average 13, 14-year-old goes in like from school and goes straight onto the computer. I knew exactly what I was doing was wrong.
Paul's case is extreme, but today's report says a significant proportion of children have come across pornography or are accessing it. And it's very different from what today's parents may have seen when they were children.
Years ago, pornography was restricted to places like this. Now those strict controls have gone, and even hardcore porn is readily accessible to children on any device.
Just a few clicks away on any mobile phone, on any tablet, for example, children can find really graphic depictions of extreme and violent sexual acts.
The report says relationship and sex education should be compulsory in all schools and should include debate on the impact of pornography. The Department for Education said that while sex education wasn't compulsory at primary level, children from the age of 5 will be taught how to stay safe online. Rita Chakrabarti, BBC News.
Oh, hi! I'm hanging out with my good friend, Tracy. Sent here to teach us about sex education.
That's right, Spud. I'm from the National Sexuality Administration, and I'm here to teach you everything you need to know about the birds and the bees.
Oh, boy! I have so many questions.
Well, ask away, Spud.
Okay. Let me think. What's gender identity?
Well, this is how a person identifies themselves according to their gender. Most people develop a gender identity that does correspond with their biological sex, but some do not.
Like a gay, lesbian, or transgender person?
Well, slow down, Spud. That's several lessons ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, what's sexual intercourse?
Well, sexual intercourse is when a penis is inserted into a vagina, a mouth, or an anus.
Oh! Tracy, my friend's mommy got an abortion the other day because she had sexual intercourse. What is an abortion?
An abortion is a medical intervention that ends a pregnancy. If your friend's mommy had used birth control, she could have prevented the abortion.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Okay, kids. Next week, we will discuss the different kinds of birth control that prevent pregnancy and disease. Yay! Please play video file 33. Practicing safe.
I remember him using this in his campaign against me, saying Barack Obama supports teaching sex education to kindergartners. And, which I didn't know what to tell him. But it's the right thing to do.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all in Jesus' mighty name. We have a little something to cover in Katy Perry land. It's not always a fun place. Actually, I don't think it's ever a fun place. There's a video that's been going around of the expectant mother, Miss Perry, God help us, showing off her expectant child's nursery room. It's a little creepy. We're going to hop in here, but before we begin...
You absolutely sure you want to set foot into such a mysterious realm?
Are you? I'm not. Let's go.
Are we okay?
I don't know, are you? You okay? I'm okay. You okay? By the way, nice clown uniform. Appreciate it.
Okay, I haven't showed anyone.
Okay.
I'm going to show you my baby room.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Ready? Just a little. Just a little.
Oh, we've never seen that before now, have we? No.
Okay.
Okay. The Masonic checkerboard, you see there on the wall with some sort of cow mask on it as well. Weird room. Very weird room for a child. Let us continue.
I have some little clothes on the wall.
Okay.
And then I have like a little pink room.
Okay. Now, some have speculated that looks like some sort of jail cell. Funny, but it does appear to be some sort of barrier to keep the child from falling out. But regardless, it is weird behavior coming from Ms. Perry. And I had no idea that she was expecting a child. It may come as a surprise to some people who watch this channel, but I don't really follow the lives of these celebrities very much. I just simply catalog all of their wonderful occult gang signs. By the way, Katie.
Congratulations.
On the coming child. I'm sure they will be very well adjusted by the time they're 15.
This is my little chair.
Okay. Alrighty.
These little lights I love so much.
Okay.
This little place to change the diapers.
Oh, she keeps doing it. Okay.
This little mobile. These little lights.
You showed us the lights. Yeah.
Do you want to see an outfit?
Oh, we see an outfit
I'm
already.
funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you.
It's nice. Barnum and Bailey is hiring. I'm sure that they'd love to have you on board. This child's going to be very, very well adjusted, as I said. This is our modern day Joan Crawford. Imagine that hanging and hovering over you in your crib, goo-goo gagging you. It's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. You kissed the girl. You kissed the girl, and that's your baby outfit for your expectant child. It's lovely. No, I think I actually think we've had enough here. Let's just dive into it, shall we? You know what we do here on this channel. So, Fred Rogers, do you have anything to say here?
Joe called and said that there was a man here who had some wonderful horns.
Wonderful horns. Also known as the sign of the horns, devil horns. A way to show your allegiance to Satan, Beelzebub, Lord of the Dung. Also, by the way, I reached out to former President Barack Obama, and I sent him the video and I wanted a reaction from him, and he sent this back to me.
I drank beer heavily and tried drugs enthusiastically.
We all understand. We do. We get it. More devil horns. More devil horns. We're just going to get right through this. And you might also notice a little something. More devil horns for you. Well, you bored with them yet? We still got a few to go. More. Katie sure likes them horns, doesn't she, Fred?
Joe called and said that there was a man here who had some wonderful horns.
Yeah. Wonderful horns. Wonderful horns. She also is apparently a distant relative of demoness Kali of Hindu cosmology, who just so happens to like to, behead her lovers and wear them, the heads, that is, on a necklace around her neck. Beautiful world. More horns for us again. And if we weren't tired of them yet, even more devil horns. Thank you. Thank you, Katy Perry. This one's not creepy at all. No. Katy Perry here, visiting the optometrist, also known as a photographer. Hollywood photographers, as we've been over many times before, are also part-time optometrists, and they often offer the models an opportunity to get their yearly eye exam through them. Here, Miss Perry can be seen with blood dripping from a mouth on her outfit, with the obvious eyeball symbolism, as always, on her top, with the Masonic checkerboard, I might point out, as well as her friend to her left, to our right, who has a dress on that says hell yes, and then her friend to her right, to our left, wearing a devil on the top. Normal. It's normal. It's Hollywood. It's almost like they belong to a, I don't know.
It's a secret society. All we ask is trust.
Yeah, it's almost like that. I'm sure that that's just the eye of providence. Just like on the back of your money. It has something to do with the triune God. It's the Trinity. Come on, guys. It has nothing to do with that Illuminati stuff you hear about. Get real. Get real. More one-eyed symbolism. She's just winking here. She's got a life jacket on, so I think she just got a little water in her eye. Whatever. I can't cover for these people. She's just covering her eyeball with some kind of medallion there. And if we hadn't had enough of the eyeball fashion, which actually seems to have robotic gears around the pupil. Thought I'd bring you a little more. And if you ever doubted whether or not all of this one-eyed symbolism is the Eye of Horus or not, as we keep telling you about, well, this is from one of Miss Perry's old music videos, where she's covering her eye with the Eye of Horus. Willow Smith, can you please help us out?
There's no way
I can block it. If I ignored pushing down the eye of Horus.
Yeah, why would you do that? Don't push down the eye of Horus. Gosh, no. It's so good. You know what's coming now, don't you? Well, first we're going to do the vanilla version.
God bless America.
Oh, yeah.
God bless Babylon.
Yeah.
Babylon.
God bless Babylon. Here she is. I guess she's got a secret. Keeping the secrets. Also known as the vow of silence, sign of Harpocrates. Harpocrates is, as we keep telling you, of course. Wrong button. The child Horus. Eye of Horus. Child Horus. Secrecy. In the occult. Snitches get stitches. It's just a good time in old Hollywood. And they thought they were just there to sing and perform and act. Oh, so cute. So cute. She sure does. She's got a secret.
Caught up in a secret society.
Yep. There it is again. And here we have her doing it again, and we're going to zoom in a little bit here. Do you note the dissociation on her face at all? Because I do. It reminds me a little bit of like Mary-Kate Olsen in her photo shoot with Terry Richardson, the infamous photographer, as well as her sister Ashley Olsen. These are the two young ladies who starred in Full House. They're now fashion designers and have had tumultuous relationships with very old men. Oh, it's good times. It's good times. Love the world. Love this place so much. Love it. Katy Perry checks off, all of the check marks necessary to identify someone as a monarch program multiple, for lack of a better term. And you might want to go ahead and look that up. This video is not intended as a primer on the topic. But, well, let's go back there for a minute. You see on her cheek, obviously, she's got the monarch butterfly symbolism here. And you'll find with these monarchs that they just are obsessed with this symbolism. So it's inserted in absolutely everything that they do. And it basically indicates that this individual is owned by the elite. Most likely someone who has been a victim of trauma in their childhood. Enjoy that rabbit hole. Enjoy that research. It's so fun. So much does she like the monarch symbolism that she sometimes dresses up like a butterfly at her concerts, And there we have a little bit more for you there. And more. Obviously on her dress she's got monarch butterfly patterns. Yay. What do we got next? Can you guess? It's fitting enough. But no. I messed it up again. I'm still learning my soundboard, ladies and gentlemen. Can you guess? Can you guess what's coming next? Yeah, you can guess. Because you saw it earlier when she was flashing up the sign of the horns. But this is the classic leopard print. That apparently Lucifer uses for hide and seek, according to the Suicide Boys, who are two demoniacs that grace us with their music. Oh, this one's beautiful, right? Got a 2-in-1. Twofer. What a deal. Leopard print and the eyeball and the TV. I'm feeling real warm and fuzzy inside. Pizzagate folks will love this photograph. I'm sure if you've done any research on that end, you've seen this anyway before, but I thought I'd include it just in case you're new to the topic or are ignorant to such things. Triple sixes, 3 6s over her eyeball, or she's a Donald Trump fan, or she's an alt-white supremacist, white supremacist, or everything's A-okay.
Go ahead. Gaslight me. You've done a pretty good job of it so far.
I haven't gaslighted anyone.
No, they do it on a daily. Here she is, letting us know again where her allegiance lies, as we've shown too many times on this channel already. On a good old Masonic checkerboard, right? This black and white checkerboard theme of duality. You got the yin and yang hat. Yin yang. You can be evil and good. That is what will make you a whole person if you can harness the two, right? So this makes all of a sudden that little dress on her coming child's nursery room's wall all the more relevant, frankly. So does this. This comes from one of her music videos. And this, of course, is the unknown pose that I've shown you in one of my recent videos where the witch Sybil Leek was doing this. And, a couple of the latest American Idol contestants had these tattooed, one on their neck and one on their arm. And just a whole host of celebrities that do this. It's practically as common as any other of the symbols that I show you. Oh, you know what's coming.
God bless Babylon. Babylon. God bless Babylon. Babylon. I'm Uncle Sam. That's who I am.
Been hiding out as a pop singer. But she came from a good home, right? She was raised Christian. She wanted to be a Christian singer. She kind of wanted to be the Amy Grant of music, according to her. But, something went wrong along the way. She was raised by two Christians. Her dad is Keith Hudson and her mother is, Mary Hudson. Mary is a prophetess. And, Keith is a preacher who I've watched his videos and he has stated, I don't ever talk about the devil, right? He's a defeated foe. No point talking about him. You might have brought it up a time or two with your daughter because it seems as though she's gone a different route, man. But here it is.
I sold my soul to the devil. Needless to say, sold my soul.
But let's check in on her parents anyway, right? Note the lovely black uniforms.
Look, if you don't know these two people, if I may go there, they are the parents of...
I'm sorry that I do.
One of the most amazing musical talents in the world today, Katy Perry. Can I go there?
It's okay. Sure. We're the parents.
You just did.
I mean, did you know she was going to be this amazing voice? When she was growing up, when she was little, when she was coming along, did you know that she would be doing what she's doing today?
We always had prophetic indications, and I believe that God tries to show you things are to come. And I was pregnant with her. I was at a conference in Washington, D.C., and the grandson, or the son-in-law, I should say, of John G. Lake prayed over me and said, this baby will do something great for God.
Wow.
She will sing before kings and presidents, and her voice will break the spirit of witchcraft.
Wow.
What you just said is articulate, it is intelligent, and it is logical.
You heard it from her mother, Mary Hudson. Katy Perry's voice is breaking the spirit of witchcraft. Until next time, God bless each and every one of you.
And a few months ago,
we identified on this channel a pattern of smile now and cry later in these eclipses that were showing up. And they seem to mark the beginning and the end of something. It seemed to actually mark the beginning and the end of the CV spamdemic. And it ended in this cry later phase of divisions, sorrows, draconian rule over the world. But it very much started out as something very different. We were just coming off of the heels of the Super Bowl, remember? And December 26th, there was an eclipse that seemed to look like a smiley face in the shadow that it cast across the earth underneath China. And they couched this as all of us coming together to help those that were suffering. And we were supposed to all be at home together and embrace the mandates and embrace the free checks that we got in the mail so that we could save lives, right? This is how they couched the initial part of the Smile Now, which happened and was kicked off during the December 26th eclipse. And then the cry later came during the June 21st eclipse, the summer solstice eclipse. And that was cry later. And why was that cry later? Because we had riots, division, we had cities in flames, chaos, small businesses going under, people threatened to be evicted, mandates, quarantines, separation from our loved ones. Cry later. And we found that there were these hints of what was to come, going all the way back to the smiley face Super Bowl halftime theme. Many of you will remember Beyonce dancing in front of the smiley faces at the Super Bowl halftime show. And then the stage had all these smiley face emojis. Remember that? And then we also remember that Lady Gaga sang this Charlie Chaplin cover song called Smile. And it was a quarantine cover song. So here are the videos that we did on the Smile Now, Cry Later, going back all the way to April. So you can see the titles there. I've linked these in the pinned comment so you could follow the rabbit trail. And many of you will remember back during the Obama presidency when we mapped out all of the school shrew teens, we're going to call them, across America. There were like 50 of them that happened, 50 events in schools across America. And we mapped them all out across the United States, and a pattern emerged. Here's the video here. I removed it off of my channel to protect the channel, but I put it here on Daily Motion years ago during the Obama presidency. For those of you that think that I just pick on Trump, I pick on whoever's in power, because they are the ones holding us all back from making any change, because whoever the current president is, we believe, half the country believes them, and nothing ever gets solved because it's the right-left paradigm. Here it is right here on Daily Motion. You can see I uploaded this on March 3rd, 2016. And there's the smiley face in the map across America. This is unbelievable. Now, when we did that video, we didn't really know what the smiley face was yet. I just mapped them all out. And there it was. You turn the map sideways and you could see it very clearly. On each coast, as well as in the middle of America, is where they did these events. These middle ones here you can see are like in Colorado. Okay. And so this is the track record of the smiley face on this channel and identifying the occult meaning of the smiley face. And I pinned this video in the comment as well, or in the pinned comments section. Now, what else is going on with this? Well, we were called crazy. We were called schizophrenic. I can't tell you how many people I had to block from the attacks that came fast and furious. But now, it's all starting to make sense, isn't it? We then look back in film history to see how the smiley face was always associated with virus, sickness, and death. It was in all of these different films. It was in The Howling. The smiley face sticker was the calling card of the viral sickness. When you get bitten by the wolf, you turn into a wolf, right? It's a virus. You saw it in the Goonies. Not the Goonies, but what's the other one? Where they multiply out of control when you pour water on them. And there was the smiley face on the refrigerator again. Over and over again, you see the smiley face. And someone also mentioned the smiley face killer. So all of this makes sense. Viral killers, viral disease, viral everything. It's all about the smiley face. It's sickness, it's death, it's a harbinger for evil to come. We even looked at the color yellow in its negative aspect, because everything has a negative and a positive aspect, right? And we found out that yellow can mean sickness. Well, now, our instincts that, of course, are gifted by the Holy Spirit, it's all coming to fruition now, as pop media is now talking about smile now, cry later. It's in full swing, and those are the videos we're going to cover today. We're going to cover Drake and Katy Perry videos. We're going to play them in slow motion. We're going to pull out all of the symbolism pointing right back to the smile now, cry later. And this is what this does is the reinforcing the sorcery on American culture and the world for that matter. Now, I'm going to leave the sound off because I really don't want this stuff playing over and over again in your head. That's part of the sorcery. But this is where everything begins here in this Katy Perry video. Now we're going to look at Katy Perry first, and then we're going to look at Drake. Now, here's the obvious, and most decode channels, for the most part, will look at this black and white symbolism. The swirl, of course. The 3 and the 3 speakers, that's 33. But you guys, this goes way deeper than this. Let's get into this. 17 seconds in. This is the opening frames of the music video. You're going to notice the Joker, the clown archetype. More specifically, this is the diamond patterned Harlequin. Now, again, in the pinned comments, I posted the videos that we did on the Harlequin, but here is the Harlequin. And you notice the diamond patterns. Now there's a character, which was the Joker's girlfriend. Her name is Harlequin. But there's also the deep, dark history of the Harlequin. And you could see the same diamond patterns and the mask, of course. This goes back centuries. Okay? And we uncovered what the Joker actually means, the Joker archetype, and why that's being repeated right now. I encourage you, if any of this feels like it doesn't make sense to you, look at the videos in the pinned comments. Many live shows that we've covered up to this point, we're pointing toward where we're at right now. You also see this chicken. Now, this chicken in this context means something a little bit different than it normally does. And finally, in this frame, the smile. Now, here's the smile, but at 27 seconds into this, you see the cry later. Okay? So, name of the song's called Smile. But the way that it got to this is you're going to see this character come up named Sad Clown. So there's your smile now, and cry later, okay? And of course, she picks the sad clown. This is her pick for this video game. Now, the backdrop of this particular music video is all about social isolation, social distancing. There's no one else in this music video with her. It's her sitting in a living room, and she's a gamer. She's gaming. Is that a window with like an eclipse in it? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But basically, they're reinforcing this idea that we don't really need people. We don't really need each other. All we need is fantasy land. And all you got to do is plug into your favorite video game or TV show, and we can just continue on with life as normal. What does that do? It reinforces their programming, because what you're going to be watching and playing on these video games is programming. And you can disappear in your own little fantasy land. And that's what's really being depicted in this music video. Then we get in here to 43 seconds. I'm going to make the, I want you to see the lyrics to this. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger with the subtitles. Blow it up to like 200% here. There we go. That should work. So, here's the blasphemy. She starts talking about rejection being part of God's protection. Okay, but she's not talking about people being rejected for standing up for God. She's not talking about people like us, who we're a very, very small part of the truth community because we stand up for God. She's not talking about us being rejected. She's talking about the misfits being rejected. And they like to reinforce the sin, which now misfits are becoming the mainstream. That's becoming acceptable. They're promoting that, right? This is the image of humanity that they want to project and promote and reinforce. Because then you bathe in your sin. You love your own sin. You don't need to change because you're just, that's God's protection, right? See the sorcery here. So let's keep going with this. Then at 107, she rides. Now this is the part that just turned my stomach. Because she rides a chicken on a rainbow bridge. And we all know what the rainbow bridge is. Let's play this. Here she goes. She's riding this chicken on the rainbow bridge. And those of you with eyes to see know exactly what you're looking at. Here at 105, 1 minute 5 seconds, you count the 12 disciples and Jesus. Jesus becomes the chicken in their mockery. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's a guy's legs here. That's 11. There's 12, the 12 disciples riding on the chicken, which is Jesus, and they're on the rainbow bridge. Why is Jesus associated with the rainbow? Because when Noah released the dove from the ark, it did not return until it came back in the Holy Spirit when Jesus was baptized. Noah made a covenant with God of a rainbow, and that covenant began to become associated with Jesus, but they've flipped that around to mean something very different. And if you don't believe me about Noah being connected to Jesus, think about how many days and nights it rained. 40 days and nights during the flood. And think about how Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days and nights. Think about how the ark was a ribbed beast, holding beasts, animals, bathed, baptized in the waters, just like Jesus was baptized, dunked in the waters. There are very many similarities between Jesus' forefather, Noah, and himself, as well as Jonah in between. Jesus talked about Jonah, the prophet. Now let's keep going with this, because this is Christ mockery, and I'm going to confirm it for you later in this music video. See how much deeper this goes than just the black and white symbolism and the 33s and the pyramids with all-seeing eyes. This goes very, very deep. Let's keep going with this. Now, we've got the 12 disciples. The one riding the chicken is probably Judas, the betrayer, right? Remember when Jesus said that the rooster will crow 3 times? Well, I'm going to explain to you the deeper meanings of what Jesus was getting at. Because there is a substance called hyaluronic acid, and it is in Wharton's jelly, which is a substance that only appears in the umbilical cord and the inside fluid of the eye, which is called the vitreous humor. And in a video that I just uploaded over the weekend, hyaluronic acid, they've done tests on it, and when they removed the hyaluronic acid from the amniotic fluid in the umbilical cord in the womb, scarring occurred. So, what they found scientifically and through studies is that hyaluronic acid is the substance that prevents scarring. And we told you that hyaluronic acid is what the chicken comb is made up of. This is this red part on the top of the chicken's head. It's called hyaluronic acid. It's bioequivalent, has the same molecular weight. And natural hyaluronic acid can be injected into your knee because it's the same molecular weight as what's inside of your knee. In fact, they use this for people with osteoarthritis. Do you see how all this fits in together? And this is why the elite call children chickens, because they're bathed in hyaluronic acid, which prevents scarring as they grow in the womb. And then after we're born into sin, born into this world, we start to deteriorate. That's what happens. So what they're depicting here, instead of Christ's sacrifice, these evil fallen ones ride their perverted rainbow bridge on the backs of the unborn children in the womb, through termination, through using fetal cells for cancer research, and VCs. Also through young blood transfusions. Do you see how there's a light side and a dark side? Christ's sacrifice versus the other sacrifice. So, again, the clown riding the chicken is Judas, who was possessed by the devil. He was the Antichrist spirit. And this is how they mock him. Now, if you're just way out in left field right now and you're going, Casey, this is crazy. There's no way that this is what you're saying it is. Then those of you with eyes to see, maybe this will make it all sink in. At 1 minute and 10 seconds, the crucifixion position. Now, here you see the 3 nails that Jesus was crucified with. They're lit up, they're highlighted here in the corner. Something tells me we're not connected. Are we up to speed here? Hold on, let's keep going with this. Okay, looks like we're good. Okay. Now, those of you with eyes to see, you're already picking up all this. Because here are the 3 nails that Jesus was crucified with. Watch this part. She shoots out she throws these daggers which become the nails. Okay. Boom. The ego check is the egg check. Play on words. There's always double and triple meanings in this stuff. Boom. Now watch this. at 1 minute 58 seconds, she shot out of a cannon. But this isn't just an ordinary cannon. There's more to this. On the cannon, you see the sun, the moon. This represents the sun and the moon roving about inside of the firmament. I believe that they are inside of the firmament. This lighting here becomes the firmament. So, they're trying to escape the firmament. They put the Antichrist inside the cannon. Here's the sun and the moon rotating around inside of the firmament. They're mocking the narrow gate here. She goes through the narrow gate, through the stars, as trying to escape the firmament. She goes through a pyramid and into the Saturn spiral. Look at this. There's the pie. Notice she does not get through the firmament. She's still under the big top. The big top is the firmament. She gets rejected. Why? Because she's holding the pie. What is the pie, Casey? This is the pie. We covered this like 5 years ago. I'm not going to leave this up on the screen long, but you see what this is. Read this title here. It's pie. Now, let's keep going with this. What was pi? It was the PEDO information exchange. It was a 1980s activist group and publication that openly promoted the practice. Rejected through the narrow gate, through the firmament. There's only one way to the Father, and that is through the Son. Now, this goes on as she's under the big top, under the firmament. She falls back to earth. Okay, look at this. Now, of course, there's images in the clouds. They're just images of animals that would be under the big top. More firmament confirmation, right? All the animals are under the big top. Okay. And then we get to 212, and look at this. See all the pink? That's the byproduct of pi. See the pink? And of course, she falls back to earth. She's unable to enter heaven. Puppets on a string. That's what these people are. And of course, they have to have a rock spider, right? What is a rock spider, Casey? This is a rock spider. Again, I'm not going to leave this on my screen long. There you go. You can't make this up. Let's keep going with this. And there's your rock spider. And now you're starting to see the connection. This is all about sacrifice. As she's doting over the pie, right? Now, at 2:28, 2 minutes and 28 seconds, you see the split personality. Now, we talked all about this. This is the trauma, the psychological split. We saw this in the film The Shining. Danny is psychologically split with Tony the Tiger, who's inside of him because of abuse suffered by his father. There is the split, the nested reality, right? Nested one within the other because of trauma. Okay. Now, we get to 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and you see this final scene of the 12 disciples and Jesus. And if you're counting, there's a little tiny figure right here in the middle. And that becomes 12. And then here's your, Jesus is the 13th, which is the chicken, which is how they mock him. Okay. Now, you're going to notice that she's got these pearl earrings. Okay. What did Jesus say? Do not throw your pearls before swine. The pearl represents the pineal. There are calcification that occurs when a pearl is created. These crystals, calcite, and these very same calcites are found when you're born around your pineal gland. That is our lamp of our body. The eye is the lamp of the body. There's also a parable about finding a precious pearl. Okay? And what this represents is just an antenna. There's nothing inside of it by itself. It's an antenna to God. It's our signal. It's where we get our signal for the Holy Spirit. There's nothing you can do to it. In my opinion, you have to, this is a miraculous thing. It's when you give your life to Jesus, the Holy Spirit fills you, and it probably comes in through your pineal gland. So she's got these pearls around her ears, and to me, this is very obvious what this represents. And then, of course, the pie in the face. This would be your humiliation ritual. But this is when she's finally able to smile, when she gets the pie in the face. This is after she's been psychologically detached from the abuse, right? So, as you can see, there's much more to this music video than meets the eye.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. I am back, and I think it's been, at least on YouTube, it's been over 3 weeks and a little bit of change since I touched base with you all. If you've been sticking with me on Facebook, I have put out a couple posts, but largely I've been absent. I put out some notices as to why. We actually celebrated the birth of our fourth child, a little baby girl, 3 weeks ago around. And I am just recuperating from absolutely no sleep. So, you know, a lot of you who have followed this channel for quite a while now, I usually do all of my live streams at around 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time at night. That's because that's really the only protected time that I really have away from, you know, the first three children. But now with the introduction of this little one, she's just, you know, commandeering every single ounce of energy that we have. So it's really by the grace of God that I'm here, and it's taking every bit of energy. But hopefully things are starting to smooth out. Birth was absolutely amazing. We had her at home. My wife did amazing. Everyone's happy and healthy. So I really appreciate all of your prayers. Sincerely, I really do. Now, 3 weeks is a long time to be absent and covering things. And so there's a lot to get caught up on. I really was thinking about just compiling it all into this one live stream, but I think it'd just be too much and it'd be all over the place. So again, hopefully if I have time, I'm going to break these into a couple segments. But this one is incredibly important. It is incredibly important because I believe that this is a major component of the great delusion that is going to sweep the earth in the end times, and, you know, even deceive the elect, as scripture says. And it's all about unrighteous mixing, and it's about moralism, or people uniting for the sake of morality, but not under, you know, the pretense of the gospel. It's like completely separate from the gospel, which is, well, as long as we're all being moral, as long as we're all being focusing on the good works, there's a common front and we can unite on that. So I want to show you some case studies of how that's happening today, and it's extremely prevalent. And over the last 3 weeks, I've just been extremely grieved to see how quickly this is moving. If you've been following the last couple videos over the past 2 months or 3 months, also if you follow E511 Ministries, you'll see that there's a purposeful exposure of the NWO going on right now. There's a lot of Christian YouTubers and bloggers and pastors, and everyone knows about the false light. There's multiple false lights. There's false religions, New Age. All of it's cloaked in light, but it's false. But what a lot of people haven't yet caught on to is that the bad satanic NWO cabal, all that, it really is being purposefully exposed. It really is trying to bring people out in even a subtle spirit of rebellion and uniting under various common fronts, which again, we will discuss some of those in today's live stream. So let me go ahead and switch on over here to screen share. And we're going to look at a viral video. Of course, you all know that I love to focus on the viral videos with how pervasive these are through social media, and more than likely, many of you will have seen these, and many of you may have even been cheering these on. And so, a lot of the things I have to say here today are going to be challenging. This particular interview is with Charlie Kirk, and he is the leader of Turning Point USA. It's an evangelical Christian site and movement, and he is here with Pastor Jack Hibbs out of California. And I'm not going to play any clips from this, but basically it's saying that the state has overstepped their bounds, way overstepped their bounds. Everything's unjust, and we need to rise up. And we, especially churches, need to unite together under a common front because this is like it's a takeover, right? They're talking about the Constitution, all these things that we've talked about in the past. And there is a lot of danger here, okay? If you haven't seen my prior video on why the Constitution isn't biblical and why patriotism is a snare, I'll redirect you to that video a couple months ago. But this plays in directly into it. And what I have to say here is, right, Satan wants to unite people under a common front. So the lockdowns and all these things that are happening globally, I agree, they are unjust. Right? They are bad things, and they're purposely being exposed as bad things. But the enemy wants to capitalize on it. He's going to give you a truth. I'm not saying it's just. I'm not saying the current situation is good or it's fair or anything like that. It's absolutely unjust. And so what these people are speaking about is 100% truth. It's unjust. It's totalitarian. It's almost like dictatorship. There's definitely an enemy deep state. There's definitely an NWO. There's all these things, right? The enemy is taking a truth and then twisting it very subtly, saying, well, now we need to unite. And the unification that is happening is an unrighteous one. And again, it's under multiple banners, but a lot of it falls under moralism, or let's unite for the sake of good works. Which, as it says in Isaiah, I think it's chapter 64 or 65, without Christ, without doing good works in Christ, all of our works are dirty rags, and so they mean absolutely nothing. But again, it feels good, and moralism is a very subtle snare for Christians. So in this interview, first I want to highlight Pastor Jack Gibbs. I had actually mentioned him in the patriotism video that I did a couple months ago. But he's one of the spearheading figures in California that is unifying pastors. I think he was routing a letter several months ago, back during the first wave in the spring, for 1,200 pastors to defy the state orders from California. So he is a very up-and-coming and vocal figure in all of this. All right, and so he is talking again with Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, and they're saying a lot of good things, right? They're saying a lot of good things about how this is against our rights, it's against our liberty, it's against our freedom. They've crossed over the boundaries. I don't think they specifically call it a deep state, but they're saying all these things. And again, it really tickles the ears because it sounds good, even to me. I'm a very conservative person, and it sounds great. But let's look into these two specific individuals and see how this unrighteous mixing is coming. Specifically, Charlie Kirk. This was on May 10th, 20. Charlie Kirk, founder and president of Turning Point USA. I'm an evangelical fighting for the Catholic school system. Even more troublesome than him supporting the Catholic school system, he acknowledges that Catholics have a different gospel. So what he is doing is not even in ignorance. It's in defiance. It is elevating morality over the gospel. As Paul says in Galatians, if there is someone that is unrepentant and has a different gospel, they are accursed. There is not to be any mixing to be had. And here I'll read here from Charlie Kirk, writing for Newsweek. As an evangelical Christian, I am not the person most would guess to be standing at the front of the march holding a sign in support of Catholic schools. After all, dating back to the Reformation, the Protestants and Catholics have had more than a few substantive theological differences, like indulgences, church authority, the composition of the priesthood, sacraments, and even eternal justification. And yet, even though they have a different gospel, which he is acknowledging, and yet, while we might disagree over things like the literal presence or salvation, and yet we'll disagree on salvation. They can have a completely separate gospel. We are totally unified when it comes to the important role of Catholic education in both America's past and future. And so Catholic schools are the backbone of school choice. And again, it's all, if you go down through this article, it's all about morality. It is putting moralism and morality over the gospel, and it's unrighteous mixing. And so this viral video, this one only has 30,000 views, but again, it was downloaded and re-uploaded, and I just saw it everywhere. Again, people that are conservative, people that support the Constitution, people that are Christian, people that see that what is happening due to this whole situation, it's unjust. This is very intriguing. This interview is very intriguing. It pulls you in. It makes you feel good. And it says, yes, finally we have some real leaders in this movement that are standing up for what is right in terms of moralism. But if you look at issues pertaining to the faith, it is unbelievably opposite. And again, it's a snare and it's dangerous. And I've been showing you through many case studies, you get inundated with these things left, right, and center from so many different voices. It is pervasive. It starts to get into your mind, and it has the opportunity to be a snare. Absolutely. A snare, if you think about a snare within the guise of like animal trapping, it is something that is not seen. It's sneaky. It's very subtle and hidden. And this is exactly what this is. Now, even further, that's just on him. But taking a look at Jack Hibbs. Now, I don't know too much about Jack. A lot of people said that he was a very sound pastor at one point, but many are agreeing that he's going in a very wrong direction lately. Let's take a look at a couple of these articles here. You know what? Oh, it was a screenshot. Okay, one second here. First of all, I'm going to show you an interview with Jack Hibbs and James Robinson. That is this guy on the left. He's a televangelist, okay? And very similarly to this interview where they're talking about the Constitution, they're talking about rights, they're talking about morality, Pastor Jack Hibbs is going on televangelist James Robinson's show and talking about all the same things. And here again, you see James Robinson to Pope Francis, in Christ we are brothers. That, I don't even really need to tell you guys that, right? That is extremely, extremely dangerous. Let me go ahead and I want to pull up this screenshot because I don't have the actual interview pulled up for you. My apologies for that, but I've got it right here. This is on Jack Hibbs' Facebook page. Christians, we must unite in this war. Jack Hibbs speaks with James Robinson, the guy who says Pope Francis is his brother in Christ. This false ecumenicism is spreading rampantly. And so, as I've said multiple times over and over and over, we have to be so incredibly patient and really just stay out of the politics. I mean, all this stuff that's going on, we need to just try to remove ourselves as best we can. I know a lot of people are saying out there, well, oh, if you don't submit your vote, you know, you're automatically giving your vote to the pro-abortion radical left and all this stuff. I have a post on my Facebook page talking about the sovereignty of God and how God sets up kings, not man. And so, you know, God puts kings in place based on the judgment of the nation. And we are a nation under judgment. And so when bad things come, you know, God is putting in place kings for that purpose. Okay? So again, you can see here, it is a very, very dangerous situation. Now, I'm going to talk just a little bit more about this mixing and you know, why it's so dangerous. And if any of you have watched my prior video, it was actually recorded in 2019 at some point, and I re-uploaded it because it was so prevalent. I talked about how it's so incredibly dangerous to lose focus and to put your focus on something other than the Word of God and core doctrine, because you can get snared or unified with other people and not really know that you're falling into a deception. So like with this one, right? We see our country in turmoil. We all want to live a peaceful life. And so naturally, we want leaders. Like, please, someone stand up for us. Someone stand up for the country. Someone please bring us back to normal. But you see how it's snaring into a false ecumenicism. And it's actually putting trust more in men than in God. It really, truly is. There's other examples of this as well. And I've personally lived these out. You know, if you ask anyone that's gone on a mission trip, they'll say the most important or the best way for you to really understand the Bible is to live it out. And if you go on a mission trip, you know, you'll see a lot of these biblical things play out. Now, myself, I haven't gone on a mission trip, but I can attest to the fact that the most that I've ever learned from God and from the Holy Spirit being my teacher through the sacred scriptures is through living things out, fully understanding Galatians and the issue with Torah observance. You know, I was surrounded by people and I saw the heresy that they were falling into. And suddenly, you know, the Holy Spirit taught me about really what Galatians and what so many other books of the Bible were about, with people getting yoked back under the law. I would have never known that unless I had gone through that and you know, experienced that through other people. Here's an example of where I have seen this snare of unity play out in multiple different ways. Again, more than likely unity under moralism, but it can be unity under other aspects as well. I'll give an example that was in my last video that I uploaded from 2019, re-uploaded from 2019. New York passed its abortion up till birth law. And when that happened, you had many pro-life figures come out and denounce this. Catholics, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, people of different faiths. And suddenly we have a common enemy, which is the New York governor and this law. And it's like, you know what? Let's unite together over this. Okay, now this is a really tough thing for people, you know, because the straw man argument will be like, oh, well, Mike from On Point Preparedness is, pro-choice, and he doesn't want to support pro-life things. No, I'm not saying that at all. You can, you know, be an activist and try to be saving babies, you know, protesting and, you know, really talking about pro-life and all these things. And you can actually work alongside, you know, if it's an organization, you can work alongside with other people of different faiths or people of this world. The line in the sand that we have to draw, and that I've seen it been crossed by Christians of the faith, is that when we had all these different faiths coming together and we had a common enemy in abortion and a common enemy being the New York governor and the legislator, it was, let's pray together. You know, let's all come together and pray to God to take this down. That is fellowship. When we start praying together, interfaith prayer, or interfaith prayer between religions, or even interfaith prayer with Christians who have definitively false gospels, that is fellowshipping with the darkness, which is explicitly reprimanded throughout the New Testament as well as the Old. If you look in all the epistles of John, mixing light and dark is absolutely forbidden in the spiritual sense. In the Old Testament, where the Torah as a schoolmaster taught us things in the flesh, it had a little bit of a different approach with how God was teaching people to be separate, right? Many times he said to the people of Israel, do not go into, I don't know if it was the Philistines or some other camp, and marry or wed, right? Back then, that was just an example in the flesh of saying there shouldn't be mixing. I also taught in Deuteronomy how God says, you know, you should not weave wool and linen together. You should not plant two types of seed in your vineyard. You shouldn't yoke an ox and a donkey together. Those are all examples in the flesh of unrighteous mixing, things that just are not compatible. So all throughout Scripture, whether it's the Old Testament going through the New Testament, you cannot mix things that shouldn't be mixed. You cannot have unrighteous mixing. And this is what people are doing. They unify over a common thing like abortion and say, okay, well, it is a really bad thing. And hey, you know, I know you have a different gospel, but you know, let's get in this together. Okay. And sure, if you want to be an activist and you want to do programs with those people and you want to take down these clinics and everything, you know, by all means. But you have to be aware of the snare of interfaith. Another example of this is it's not just about stopping at interfaith prayer. It actually goes much farther than this. I have personally witnessed people that have fallen away from the faith because it started with interfaith prayer over unification on something like abortion or some moral issue. First, it starts off as prayer, and then thoughts suddenly creep into your mind of, you know, I know I've been taught Catholicism is a different gospel, but Mary is not Mary, bad name. Joan, whoever this person they're doing interfaith prayer with, she has such a heart for God, and she's really fighting for these children's lives, and she's really fighting to save babies, and you know, maybe we all really are of the true faith, and it starts to soften your heart in the wrong way. And I've seen it go so far as to where people have actually converted from the true faith over to Catholicism or over to a completely different faith because they were mixing. And that mixing, as Jesus said, is like leaven. And it will really mess up people's walk. And so we have to be very careful, again, about unifying over something, over the gospel, and always thinking about where is our focus. Another example, which I've brought up frequently on this channel, again, is not really in relation to morality, but it can be in relation to biblical topics like prophecy. But I do not comment on flat earth at all. You won't get an opinion from me on this channel. But I have seen people obsess so much over flat earth that they follow people that are believing in a false gospel because they are really prominent flat earth experts. And so that's another snare, right? Or prophecy. Someone, you know, is always doing the news and is always giving prophecy updates and signs of the times and all these things and is keeping everyone aware, but they themselves aren't really talking about doctrine and the true beliefs. You start to unify over something, over the gospel. You know, it's prophecy. And you really don't get to know what that person really believes about Christ and whether the Christ that they believe in is the same Christ as you. And so that's why I re-uploaded that video from 2019. You really need to be testing people and see if they really are of the faith, and make sure that your focus is always on the sacred scriptures. It's always on Christ, and it doesn't get detracted into all these side issues, especially morality. And really, this is where it all winds down. Is on this article, I just happened to pick this up. This is August 11, 2020. Over half of U.S. Christians believe good works will get them into heaven. I am a former Catholic. I don't even really like calling myself a Catholic because I always hated going. I was never really passionate about it. I basically only went because my parents told me to. But I honestly believed that, everyone that was moral and everyone that was good, I felt very confident we were all going to heaven. And until I actually started reading scripture and for God to open up my eyes, I realized that they're all dirty rags unless those works are in Christ. And so this is an incredibly, incredibly big snare. Now, I'm going to be taking the latter half of this video to talk about another moral snare. So we've already talked about patriotism and rising up against this NWO state, and how this is actually a purposeful exposure to get people to unify under these fronts. Here's another one. Over the past 3 weeks, I have seen more articles and organizations and memes and pictures and everything regarding this hashtag of Save the Children and the child rings and traffic, all those things which I can't really say clearly here because of censoring. And this article from moms.com says it very well. What is the hashtag Save the Children really about, and is it getting out of hand? Another thing is Facebook blocked that hashtag, which sparks more anger and theories. And specifically, I've highlighted here, this hashtag has been trending online, and it's all over social media. People are tagging it everywhere and anywhere that they can. Let's see, do I have another highlight here? All throughout this article, basically it's saying that it's everywhere. This is unbelievably viral, especially the QAnon. See, here it is on New York Times. QAnon followers are hijacking this hashtag, and this hashtag's everywhere. And I'm actually going to show you a couple more articles here. And if you've seen my Out of the Shadows expose, how I'm talking about Out of the Shadows and Plandemic, these were two viral films, again, that were part, I believe, of the enemy's plan to purposely reveal the deep state and to purposely reveal evil so that people wake up, quote unquote, the Great Awakening. People wake up and say, this is horrendous. We need to come together. We need to unify. But it's not under the gospel. It's under these other aspects, particularly morality. But I would be amazed if you have not seen this hashtag or things like it all over your social media. And again, just as I talked about the pro-life thing, it is wonderful that these things are being exposed. It's wonderful that the people, God is going to pour out judgment on all these people that are doing this to children. In fact, everyone hates people that do this to children. Even the worst people of society hate people that do this to children. If you think about when someone who does this to children goes into prison, what happens? The worst of the worst people, I'm just talking from a secular perspective here, right? Nothing about, powers and principalities and things like that. The worst of the worst people in prison hate people that do trafficking or hate people that do things to these kids, and they'll kill them. So it doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much for the world to unify over a movement like this. And so, yes, it is good that this is being exposed. It is good that judgment is going to be served. And, all that is good. But the enemy is truly taking a truth and taking a moral goodness, and he will use it for his own benefit to unify people. So you've seen these hashtags. They're going viral, but it's not just that. There's tons of other articles that I've pulled up for you all about this movement. Again, directed by Epstein Ghost, this new Netflix film promoting this. All right, you guys have all seen this. This is viral. This is from RT. Here's another one from Tucker Carlson from Fox News. Blasts Netflix project for doing this to little girls. You know, it's so blatant. It is so blatant that it's capturing the attention of the world. Here's some more things. Trump administration is giving $35 million in grants to aid the survivors. Here's another one. Rise Up for Children. How to join up a Rise Up for Children demonstration. I'm seeing these all over the world, by the way. All over the world. Maybe not through this particular organization, but these organizations are sprouting up left, right, and center, and it's absolutely consuming my social media. Disney World employees. I could go on and on. I mean, this isn't just related to hashtags and viral things. I mean, concrete, hardcore things are going down. Disney World employees among 16 men arrested in this sting. Even the Beirut issue. They found some secret or suspicious tunnels. And even in this, others are thinking they were used for this particular topic we're talking about. Everywhere you look, this issue is coming up. And again, myself and people like John from E511, we've been talking about this ever since, I mean, well, at least me, I've been talking about it since I saw the Out of the Shadows documentary, because they expose this as well. The enemy is using something good, like exposing these people, taking down these rings, and he's using it to unify people, because it is such an emotionally binding thing that, again, all people of this world generally hate. Even the worst offenders in prison hate. That it creates just an inseparable glue to unite people. And you all know here, the whole QAnon thing, you actually have a lot of people in the QAnon movement. So QAnon, they actually say they're Christian. They're a legion of Christians in high levels of military and government. I call them a cult. I've done videos on them before. If you haven't seen them already, it definitely is a cult. But they say that they are doing moral justice. They're going after these child things. And they say that their movement has been hijacked by other people. So whenever you start to see all the crazy things like, regarding this child ring stuff, they said, what did they say? Tom Hanks, he's arrested, and the Canadian Prime Minister, he's arrested, and he's not allowed out of his house. They got into all these micro granular details, which is like really crazy. Like, it just didn't even make sense at all. The true Q people that are in high levels of government, they say that they've been hijacked, and that all these people are putting out these mischievous posts and things like that. And so even these main people within the Q echelon, people that identify as Christian, people that are on high levels of government, like even General Flynn. General Flynn is using QAnon hashtags. He's part of it. One of their missions is to take down all this traffic. And it seems, again, I'm saying it's a cult. Don't follow QAnon. There's just it's just bad. It really is bad. But that doesn't mean there's not some truth to it. Don't get sucked in there. I wouldn't be following it, but there might be some truth in it, that they're going to make good on their promise, that they're going to take certain things down. And with the arrest of, Epstein's wife and things like that, there's things coming out. And it has been my suspicion. I can't make any guarantees. This isn't a prophecy or anything like that. This is me just reading the writing on the wall. And I talked about it in my Great Awakening movie, but I want to double down on this. Because of all this, it's everywhere on social media. It looks like the enemy is trying to captivate the world's attention on this, and there may be some big event coming. If there is, according to this whole Q thing, some big disruption all around trafficking, it has tremendous power. It has tremendous power to, honestly, I think Biden is a fall guy. I mean, like gropey, sleazy, Joe Biden, who's always sniffing people. Honestly, I think he might be implicated. And, he's just going to get tossed to the side and it's going to be a landslide election. That's just a thought. But again, many high power people in entertainment, politics, and even religion may be implicated in some worldwide sting. And if that were to happen, I just see that having huge, unbelievably huge potential to rock the entire world in a multitude of ways. In terms of dictatorship, you could easily, with deep fakes or anything else, this is such a polarizing topic that people don't really even need a trial, right? It's almost, instead of, that you're innocent until proven guilty, it's this way for this particular crime, it's guilty until proven innocent. It stirs up that much of a violent emotional reaction in people. And so you have the power to really start slaying opposition very easy with this. And if there were to be so many people implicated, in the frenzy and stir of this, you could get away with a lot. So again, it has the power to really disrupt the chain of command and power. As I've been mentioning, all about unrighteous mixing and the false gospel and the threat and snare of moralism. People will come together over this. And again, if you're involved in this and you're sharing these hashtags, okay, I'm not saying don't do that, right? Because again, justice needs to be served. But just be mindful that the gospel has to, don't just tell people that this is bad. Tell people that we're in a fallen world where man's sin is transgressing up all the way to the heavens, and God sees all of this, and the only salvation we have is in Christ Jesus. Make sure you're not just talking about the topic at hand, okay? Because people of all other different faiths and people of the world are saying the exact same thing. And if we just only say that, we're indistinguishable from the world. And we also have to recognize what the enemy is doing with this to snare people. So by all means, keep on keeping on with this, but recognize the danger and how the enemy is going to use this, and always make sure that the gospel is always promoted along with all your sharing and everything that you're doing for this. Okay. What else did I have to say on this? And then I've touched on this a couple times in some prior videos, but in terms of religion, on my channel in years past, I still think that I don't really at this point am focusing too much on the players. Like I've had some strong opinions in the past in terms of who is the beast of the earth. I honestly think it's the king and leadership and the nation of the United States being the beast of the earth and false prophet leading certain things. I've made some opinions, eschatological opinions in the past on this: beast of the earth, beast of the sea, and then the harlot. I have general opinions on who they are and what they do, but in terms of naming names, saying this person is this, that person's that, I'm not getting into that much. That being said, I'm really not sure where the Vatican falls in all of this. I had always thought that the Vatican had some part to play in terms of this harlot. Again, we are the bride of Christ. We're a church. We're a good and faithful servant. Then you have another woman, the harlot. And again, she represents an antichrist church. And so that's a true definition of the harlot. It's some type of religious system that is antichrist. And she controls beast systems. I'm going to talk a little bit about type and shadows regarding that in a later video, but I had always thought that Rome, again, would have some part to play in a one world religion, and it's still possible. The Pope still is, again, as we've seen here, right? The Pope is still playing a large part in this ecumenicism. He might not ever go away, but I recognize that this whole child thing, this may implicate the Vatican even further. Right now, it's just been random abuse cases. But if there is actually organized trafficking that goes throughout this, most world religions see the Vatican and see the Pope as a moral authority for the world. Most do. And so if something this big were to be exposed within, the leadership of Roman Catholicism, that would leave people fairly hopeless. That would, again, change the dynamic of the world, not just within Roman Catholicism, but again, in many world faiths, saying that, institutionalized religion has let us down. Look at this. Everything's corrupted. Entertainment is corrupted. Governments and politics, obviously corrupted, but even religious institutions corrupted. It can leave people in a place of hopelessness and make them ripe for an Antichrist Messiah. So, as I've been saying on and on and on in many videos, we have to adhere to firm doctrine. But as it applies to eschatological and prophetic opinions of what's going to happen next, let's just keep our eyes and ears open and say, what if, what if, what if? God is going to continually reveal these things in more clarity as we go through the times. But I'm telling you all these things as a what if, so that we're not deceived. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm not in an hour. I'm at 40 minutes. That's pretty good. I didn't think I was going to get through all that quickly. But please, I have been so grieved. I have been so incredibly grieved over the past 3 weeks, looking at social media and seeing this unfold, seeing a unification around moralism in absence of the gospel. And this is a very tough thing too, because it's not, people say, how do I give the gospel like in every single sentence to every single person, right? Sometimes it's just like even me, conspiracy. Conspiracy, I'm not going to say it was part of my Christian walk, but I was following Alex Jones, and it was actually Prison Planet and InfoWars that started getting me to question the world. And then ultimately, I sort of separated from Alex Jones and was looking into matters of faith by myself. Alex Jones is a snare. He's an absolute snare, and he's also part of this Gnostic narrative. And so, again, it's not like we should be promoting him, but, God will use everything. Then that's some of the excuse that people will say is, it's difficult to give the gospel in every single one of these messages. Sometimes I'm just, seeding and watering, like a person has an affinity for conspiracy, and so I'm just giving them a little bit, and then I'll sort of add on to it with the gospel. However you want to do it is fine. I don't know how you do it in every single circumstance out there, but as long as you know and you're principally based on what's happening, trust in the Spirit of God to lead you, and that you're not acting out in the flesh. Okay? It's not that you're supposed to cut off every single thing because it's all bad. Cut off all the pro-life stuff, cut out all the hashtags and sharing and things like that for the child stuff. I'm not calling for that at all, right? Keep on doing what you're convicted to do, but see what is happening. You have to see how the enemy is using this. And so be in prayer and ask God to give you the right words in every single thing that you say to any single person, so that people aren't being led astray. Because I guarantee you that even though we have pure motives in sharing Plandemic, I've seen so many people say, you know what, it's still truth. I know that, and if you've seen, Plandemic 2 came out, and there was definitely New Age teachings in there. Definitely towards the end. Definitely New Age teachings. It's exactly what I was calling here several months ago. Many people told me, Mike, I agree with you. I see he's into Third Eye Awakening and New Age things, but you know what? People need to get this information out. Or people need to hear and get this information. So I feel that I can still share it anyways. And that's dangerous. I mean, that really is saying that, I value a worldly truth over the potential that someone might get snared and get driven into a false gospel, especially people that aren't currently in Christ and aren't firm in doctrine. you send it to unbelievers, and then at the very end, they're talking about Buddha and, third eye awakening and other things, and off they go. We are accountable. God will hold us account to everything that we do. And so prayerfully consider, everything that you're doing in this hour, and make best use of your time, as Scripture says, for the days are evil. All right, so I'm going to try to cut this off before 45 minutes. It was good to be back. Hopefully this gets me back in the routine of things. It's been a little bit difficult to get this off the ground because I've been so tired. But keep me in your prayers. Hopefully baby starts sleeping a little bit better. And I'll start to talk a little bit more about the topics that I tried to cram all into this video, and I knew it wasn't going to work, because there are definitely a few. I think what I'll do in the next video, this will actually be a nice, short, succinct thing. It's a biblical teaching. Lately, a lot of people have been somewhat perturbed with me that I've been doing public rebukes on this channel. And they say, well, you should always go private, according to Matthew 18. I'm going to do a teaching on why it is appropriate to publicly rebuke outside of Matthew 18. And if you're not aware of Matthew 18, it says if a brother sins against you, you go to them privately, then before 2 to 3 witnesses, then before the body of Christ. There's scripture where that doesn't happen. Specifically, if you look, I believe it's in Galatians, or I have to get the verse for you, but you all know when Peter was eating with the Gentiles and the Pharisees came, and he withdrew from the Gentiles because he wanted to look good in front of the Pharisees. Paul didn't use Matthew 18. He rebuked them in the presence of all because there were certain criteria that were met. And so we're going to go ahead and address that in the next video, because, again, not everything goes according to Matthew 18, like most people say. So until that video, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. God bless everybody.